Started proper. Hello, one and all. Welcome to the Opus Magnum Weeklies 2023. This week's puzzle is Eyedrops of Irritation. This is my own puzzle. I cooked it up a few months ago. I can't remember when the idea first popped into my head, but what I do remember is that I settled pretty early on the output shape, the fish shape, and also the idea of having three different elements, three different salt likes in a jumbled order. Initially, it does look a lot like a fish. I liked the output shape a lot and was trying to get a puzzle to work with this output shape. That was definitely one of the first things I settled on. Depends on the puzzle, what you settle on first, but for this it was the output shape. Initially the input was a lot more of a pain in the ass. I think the other weekly hosts had to rein me in. It was basically what you see now as the input, except doubled. As in it was like a 6-atom input, and it was just as scrambled, if not more scrambled, but there's a lot more stuff you have to deal with, and it just made it a more annoying puzzle. It didn't really add anything mechanically interesting that this version doesn't already accomplish, so Bist wisely told me just do the 3-atom input, and then I kind of got sold on it. Eventually I came around, and then I actually started playtesting this version and went, oh, okay, this is like spicy, but in a way that I like. So, two metrics for this puzzle. Sum, which is the metric I was kind of had in mind first. I wanted to design a sum puzzle. And then height. Because height worked out to height 3, and it's a pretty long output at height 3. So that and the combination of the inputs being in a scrambled color pattern kind of made height quite limiting, but not too limiting so as to not be fun, just kind of challenging. I guess I should talk about that. Yeah, I deliberately picked the inputs to be so the input color is air in the middle, which is the least convenient arrangement. If you had either fire in the middle or water in the middle, it would be an easier puzzle, and it would be more convenient. But I did think if you did that, it would be a bit more of a basic, straightforward assembly puzzle. Right about the input being the most annoying variation. Yeah, it's surprising how much of a difference that made to the puzzle. But yes, I quite like this puzzle. Looking forward to get into it. I didn't see any fellow weekly hosts in chat, but in the voice chat, but perhaps they might join me. Oh, apparently Biggie will be joining us shortly in chat. Good. All right, let me boot up the old parser for height, which we will be starting with. I'm gonna take Yosh's advice and build the suspense a bit for the sum metric, which is the one subject to a lot of speculation and a certain hot sauce bet. We will get to that when I talk about sum. Let's kind of break in to the week a bit with height first. What solution should I start with? I kind of want to try such a shape in the other hexagonal chemical game. You mean Moloch Synthèse? That could be a Moloch Synthèse shape, actually. I don't know. Would it even work? I don't know. It'd be different because of the whole hydrogen atoms and what atom type you choose, I guess, would be a bit weirder. Yeah, Kazian, height always seems to be a metric that it's a very slept on metric. You can, I don't know, it's kind of surprisingly not hard to design a pretty good height puzzle. Height's just a pretty fun metric. I don't know, it's limited but not that limited. It kind of reminds me of production cycles, where it's like limited enough to throw out your normal theory on cycles, but also it gives its own kind of freedom, and that is a two-dimensional freedom. Cycles, but good. Okay, we're going to start at 14th place with Redstone Paradox with a height of 4. This is the only 4 height solve submitted, I believe. Yeah, only one. Now, I don't think Redstone Paradox was too fussed about optimizing, so I don't think they'll be too annoyed. But they did mention it's a pretty... When you're just solving the puzzle and not optimizing, it's not too bad. I remember the speed solves at the start of the week complained... this is a pretty annoying puzzle to speed solve, because you don't realize how much of a pain in the ass it is at first.
Hello.
Biggie! Welcome! Alright. I'm kind of relieved I don't have to do all the commentary by myself.
Yeah, I'm here. I finished up dinner, so I was about 10 minutes late, but I'm around.
Oh, question for chat. Before I continue. Does Biggie sound robotic?
Ooh, it's a possibility. I'm running something really intense on my laptop because I'm a dumbass, and so maybe it's not getting my voice.
It's not your fault. It happened last week to everyone who wasn't me, and I'm pretty sure it was... I think the reason was because I had the volume on my end too loud, so that, like, my speakers were feeding back into my mic, which made everyone sound robotic-y. Okay, not robotic-y. Okay, good.
Alright, and I'll get a little closer to the mic, and hopefully that's the only thing.
No, that's it, because it sounds fine on my end. I can't tell, so I have to ask chat. Alright, thanks for that. Alright, so... Pretty simple breakdown of how... I think you'll see this a lot to come, especially in some, where the I guess we should talk about how you solve this puzzle. There are two main general routes to solving the puzzle. You have the duplication method and the debonding method. And you can do a bit of both if you want, but usually a solve will fall into one of two categories. Although with height, I think it gets a little trickier because you can do both at the same time. Duplication involving, so the idea, which you probably won't see much for height, is to preserve all the bonds you have and just focus on your calcification duplication. With height, you could also do that and debond, because all the other solves from this point will be at min height, and that is pretty geometrically constraining. Or you can just straight up debond, and that's what this one's going to do. It's just going to debond all it needs to do. It will debond, so there are 3 debonds that need to happen. The first 2 debond the water, and the third one will debond the fire. And that kind of forces this into a pretty natural, kind of halves method. So as you can see here, you kind of have a C shape on the right and a Y shape on the left. I will be calling this the psi method. It will be cropping up in some a fair bit. So keep that in mind, the psi method.
Why psi?
Because CY.
Oh, CY. Okay, I hear PSI, like the Greek letter, because I'm a physics nerd, and I don't think of anything other than that.
I was saying it out loud. I'm like, wait, that doesn't sound like CY at all. Cyan method. All right, yeah, I like cyan method. We'll go with cyan. But yeah, this is a very straightforward breakdown. This does make the puzzle look not too bad, which I appreciate. However, all the souls from here on out are min height.
This is a bit of a pain to do at min height.
I know, which is why I'm surprised so many people did it at min height. It is a kind of a painful puzzle at min height. So next up, we have 7P Storm. So from now on, I'll just read the cycle counts. This comes in at about 1,200 cycles. Alright, so you can see this one showcasing duplication method.
A debonderless solve.
Yeah, not even with a debonder, just pure duplication. So
I did wonder to myself if a debonderless solve could get fast enough.
yeah, I mentioned the very like a minute before you arrived. I was mentioning the other, the main duplication kind of strategy with height. You might think also involves debonding anyway, just because your geometry's so constrained at min height here. Alright, so this solve, kind of interestingly, it uses it'll let me just let it output. Alright, so it'll grab a fresh reagent. Alright, it'll ghost grab that one first, which is kind of neat actually. So it'll grab a fresh reagent and it'll use that as a catalyst for the kind of calcified reagent that Arm 2 has, and then they will swap places. So Arm 2 that'll be the new calcified one, and it kind of, and it'll do that in a different method depending on what colors it needs. So first it needs air, fire, air, then fire, water, fire, and now water, air, water. And then it'll just kind of do all the debonding at the very end. And there are only 3 arms to this solve.
It's also trying to do on both sides of the output, because it's really hard to do it on only one side of the output either.
That's a very constraining factor of this puzzle, actually. Just the output glyph gets in the way. And just kind of
3 full tiles from the left to the right, and you can't grab across it with an arm, so you're going to need to do something to reach across it, or just work from only one side.
Yeah. I'll read the note. So the instructions, so the notes read, the instructions for this one are as following. Reagent 1 becomes wall of salt. Using Reagent 2, wall of salt becomes a third of the product. Then juggle your two reagents. Deposit the first one, the second one becomes a wall of salt, and then rinse and repeat. Then begin construction. Then send the product and return to the initial position. And then there was that fail safe, which was the ghost grab, so that it doesn't crash. The title still. Oh, I never fixed the title. Jesus, I'm so bad with that.
It's alright, you can rename it as it becomes a VOD. The stream is just gonna have to live with that.
Oh, it happens every week. I think there was one week where it didn't happen. Exactly one. Okay. This is a cool solve. It almost gives me HG vibes, actually.
Yeah, with the 3 duplicators, though, I really...
No, yeah, it wouldn't actually, because 3 duplicators. But just, like, because there's only 3 arms doing all the work. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, moving on to 12th place. The cycle count will take a nosedive to 466. Submitted by Please Lol.
Well, this looks a lot like the one Genius 42 sent me. And the cycle count on that was mid 460s as well, so I think maybe it's Genius 42's equivalent solution. Although it has 2 end pieces, so I'm not sure of that.
Yeah, it's
2p.
Yeah, it is 2p. That's funny. That's funny. It'll bond it together as a ring, so it can pass it off. So it can pass the double tail off to Arm 5.
Oh, true. Literally, it needs something of that width to be able to hand it off. Because if you just have 3 atoms, Arm 4 cannot talk to Arm 5.
Yeah, the Arm 4 is fully outstretched here, as is Arm 5. So yeah, you actually need to do that, which is kind of funny. So, I guess this one... we'll see this one happen a bit. So this one constructs a ring and combines it with the tail at the end. I'll call this the ringtail method. Just because it's got a nice snappy name to it. And it differs slightly from the cyan method.
Yeah, the ring will have a water in it, and gets to keep two elements in the sea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I think the main reason a lot of people kind of naturally worked with the cyan method is that the Y doesn't have any fire and the C doesn't have any water, and that kind of provides a very clear natural division of labor. Okay. We'll see how often the ringtail method pops up, though. Moving on. In 11th place, we drop down to 381 cycles with Calliuresis.
Really?
Boat track is the name of the solution, and that is a dope track loop.
This is fully rebonding. There's no duplication.
No duplicator in sight.
I like that it's building the top. It's building the output like layer wise, top to bottom.
It is, yeah.
And I guess that's true. If you look at this as a rasterized, like left to right, you get one of each atom in the top layer, one in the second layer, one in the bottom.
It is a pretty natural idea for height. I'm curious to see as to whether it'll prop up later or not. The only thing really slowing this down is that there are only 3 atoms doing all the bonding and one doing the outputting. So it's kind of...
Yeah, it can't grab inputs nearly often enough to keep a rate that is like competitive at the highest level.
Yeah, rate is going to be a pretty big problem for some of the solves trying to be more competitive. Knowing it's Calliuresis, I imagined the fact that he's popping up outside the 10 kind of means he didn't really try that hard.
Yeah, and the chat says, I was mainly focused on some this week.
Yeah, that's understandable. Some gets pretty competitive.
I don't think Team 42 is going to be towards anywhere good in some. I have a pretty solution, and that's one session of effort, and then I just worked on height.
That being said, height's about to get competitive as well, because we drop almost 150 cycles to 10th place. We drop down to 234. It is the Weekly gang. This is a team composed of Faindeer, Rebix, and Gecko. Not to be confused with the actual Weekly gang.
I remember that Rebix and Faindeer and Gecko all worked together. Okay, yeah, this is no debonders as well.
Alright, so this is pure duplication. So to do duplication, you need at least 4 dupes without a debonder. If you include a debonder, you can get that number lower, but this one doesn't, so 4 duplications is exactly what it does, which means you need to do it twice on one of them. And it'll handle that as the second one. I kind of like how it handles it here. It's a little crazy this only came in 10th.
I think this duplication method is wild, but having done the way that I have done it, it's just so wrong. What kind of rate does this manage? You just alt-click on the first instruction of ARM 2 twice.
38.
38, okay. Good to know.
30, yeah, okay, 38 off.
Because there's going to be some trade-off, and in height solves there always is, between rate and latency, because you will end up being able to get pretty low rate and then realize, oh shoot, the latency sucks now.
Oh.
And I've always proved what the rate is.
For those of you fluent in the Fugitsku mod. What is the button to like swap the metrics? Because I think Fugitsku's got a function where you can just like.
Isn't it 6?
6. Maybe I have to. Okay, I don't seem to have that, or at least 6 isn't working. Oh, it is 6, so it just okay. I might not have it or something. I might not have it. Maybe an option I don't have turned on. That's okay. I'll do the double alt click method of figuring out what the rate is. Nice Pac-Man track here at the start, though. I will say that.
It reminds me of like production chambers, which is really what height is. It's just a production chamber that you've imposed yourself and has no left or right edge.
I was comparing it to production cycles, actually. Height solves. Because cycles tends to always be the secondary for height.
Yeah,
the HG metric remains relatively unexplored to this point.
I've grown more fond of the infinite width in cycle secondary and started to do like cursed really wide things. So production is still so far away from it for me.
That's fair. Yeah, no, you can really abuse the infinite width in height in a way that you really can't during production cycle. So it does, I think, offer you a bit more freedom.
Like you can pick whether you want to make a really long chain and throw latency out the window for that extra 1 rate. And then width exists too, I guess.
I almost made this puzzle width.
Oh, but the output is so heighty.
Just because, like, it would have been a wide width, and that would have offered more freedom, despite width being jankier, I guess. So I almost did width, but I thought this will be... I don't know, I liked this as a height puzzle, just because it's a long boy output. Yay height, boo width. Actually, I think Goodbye Galaxy also hates width. Alright. Moving on, though. In 9th place, we actually will drop under 200 cycles already.
That's a pretty strong field.
Yeah. In 9th place, we have Team Still Not a Jasper at 198. So, Hexarm. Because it is a height 3 solve.
It's breaking all of the bonds. So this is a Hexarm on debonder. And it's like rotary phone in the inputs. That's really slick.
I'm a little disappointed it didn't place better, if I'm being perfectly honest. Because I really like this rotary phone idea. You got a bunch of arms helping out. What's the rate on this bad boy? 32R.
I guess I'm curious in this, like, is there a fundamental reason it can't be lower? It gets the latency really low compared to some of the rate monsters I am imagining will show up later. But I guess the amount of rotations ARM1 has to do, although it has so much downtime, it looks like it could target as low as like 26 or 7R, but it has a lot of extra white space on ARM1 at the end.
Yeah, there does seem to be a bit of a natural rate constraint on the rotary phone idea. Also, I probably shouldn't undersell the fact that we're going to get pretty tight towards the top here. That 36 cycle drop that we just took, I don't think we take another drop that big for the rest of height.
It makes me feel good about the 6 cycles I saved on the last session where I told Genius I'm not going to try hard, and then I did the thing.
And then did you have much of a crack at height?
On the last day, I teased together a height idea, and then I sent it off to Genius, and then said, I definitely think that if I tried really hard, I could drop 1R, but I don't have that much interest in try-harding this puzzle. And then half an hour later, okay, fine, blank. And then I cut 5 cycles.
All right. Remains to be seen whether whether the 5 cycles matter. Before I move on, how could I forget the notes? So the notes read, have you ever been to a stage magician's show? I quite like the trick where a length of colourful handkerchiefs are pulled out of the performer's narrow sleeve. Alchemist Karzian, in correspondence with Alchemist Jasper.
That plus the title is beautiful.
I can't believe I almost forgot to read that. Yeah, we were using rotary phone, but that is another pretty choice analogy. A lot more colourful analogy, actually. Also, about the puzzle itself, there was a bit of debate as to which 3 cardinal elements I should have chose. Best was trying to convince me to replace the fire with earth. This is before we settled on the name Eyedrops of Irritation, so that's why the fire makes sense, but I don't know, I think that, because it's, I don't know, it's a bit of a offbeat choice of colours. You got the 2 similar blue, then the lighter blue, and the red kind of stands out, and I think that kind of fit with the Eyedrops of Irritation motif and the whole spicy puzzle idea.
I like it as it is. I think
the more
it's isomorphic to any other choice you could have made. So maybe I'm not the person to weigh in. But
did you think about puzzle aesthetics much when you were designing your tournament puzzles?
Not specific. Like Swamp Fiber was one of the only ones where I know I did, because I was like, I want this to be kind of a really janky infinite that has these restrictions about what kind of cycles you can get on it. But the fact that it had moors and sludge. All the other ones, it was just kind of like, I have a technical concept in mind, and I do not know necessarily which will be the most important aspects to. So I'll playtest, and then I'll get the thing that I playtested out. I'm already familiar with it, so I'm going to ship it exactly that way.
Yeah, I think it's a thing I focus on more than most other puzzle designers, because I don't know, the kind of aesthetic of a puzzle. I don't know. I know. I like how it feeds into the way you think about a puzzle. And I know that doesn't actually matter, like, in terms of mechanics, but I know, just kind of helps set a vibe. So this puzzle has a spicy vibe. And
I like that.
And it kind of fits because I don't know. It's, and I find that satisfying to do with puzzles after I've worked out the mechanics of them. Alright. We'll move on, though. In 8th place, we dropped down 4 cycles per Cuckoo 52. Also, it's kind of funny because this puzzle is so constraining. The solves that we've seen so far have, like, still been short enough for me to not need to expand my screen.
Yeah, that's wild to me.
Because, yeah, it's height, and that I usually don't get that luxury.
I think I cut 2 off of the left to right width of the height solve as I was optimizing, but it was always a wide boy.
So this one's kind of funny because it debonds. So I talked about the debonding method. Usually you have to, like, you usually go about debonding the water twice and the fire once, and that usually means 2 different debonding methods. This one has 3 different debonding methods. So it'll move the first one, it'll translate to the right. The second one will translate to the left, but the third one will pivot to the left.
Oh, and that just breaks off the fire on the same debonder. Also,
Yeah.
Arm 5 is bringing watery Anna Jones around.
Yeah, that fire that water at the back there goes on a bit of a journey there. Yeah, it goes way off to the back of the solve. And it eventually will do the, I guess it's a ringtail method. Which I think suits this particular idea better, because it just kind of, it's a matter, because, I don't know, having a Y here doesn't really seem too easy to construct, as opposed to just having the water bond straight to the sea. So, this is more of a ringtail solve. A ringtail debonder solve. And it is a pretty impressive track river, yeah.
I love how many actions that track river accomplishes within the first like 5 cycles of the solution, just because there's so many atoms still not yet bonded to manipulate. Once they're bonded, you're kind of stuck into the prescription of what you're supposed to do. But
Kevin mentions regarding widths, I found it was hard to divide up the work in a way that increased latency but decreased cycles. Usually end up with an arm that had too much to do just because of reaching problems.
Yeah, Arm 1 definitely has too much to do in this solution to make it any real faster.
Yeah, you would have liked to have had another arm helping out Arm 1, but because of the way it's constructed, there is no arm that can help out Arm 1. It's kind of on its own, despite there's like 6 arms at the back trying to help out as best they can.
Yeah, it sounds like the way you'd plan this is you would make Arm 1 have the options to move exactly what it needs to move and do it as tightly as possible, and then build as much machinery behind it as you need to enable that. This one is 6p, it looks like, so there's not a good way to measure rate. Looks like it might be 29 rate? No, 27? I'm trying to count the tickers of 4 between Arm 3 doing things.
Okay, so let's figure out what cycle it outputs. So 34.
It's 27 rate, I'm pretty sure, just looking at the...
66. Yeah, that's 27 rate. Yeah.
Well, no.
Yeah.
34 to 66? 32.
Oh.
This is 32.
Sorry,
I'm confused by the tickers on... I guess it doesn't time things in the back the same on the first and subsequent products, because I was looking at the spacing between Arm 3's grabs, and that's just not a good proxy here.
Yeah, it's 32R. Has to be 32, yeah. Or at least until it loops back to its original. Like, in its steady state, I think it's 32R.
Got it, okay. A couple lines mentioning Arm 1 helps on the first pull, so it has a shorter first loop.
Okay, so it cuts a couple of cycles out of the first loop. Alright. Moving on though. We dropped down 12 cycles to our 7th place solve. We have Ebonov. The other solve has more height thoughts, but this one vibes. I think there are...
Was there a second height solve that was not as good as this one?
No. No, yeah, everyone have only submitted one height solve, one sum solve, so maybe they're talking about their sum solve.
It's cool that this one duplicates off of a back input, and it only needs to duplicate water and fire. It keeps every air as is.
Okay, so I'm a little confused as to what the other solve is referred to, as whether it's the sum solve or not. But it mentions it in the notes. The other solve has a big loop in the center where partially transformed regions move on bottom. They must be talking about another height solve that they didn't submit. Where partially transformed regions move on the bottom center and empty arms go back on top. It's the first time I can see the throughput at each section. 18R at pulling, 24R at assembly, some insignificant R at final touch-up. Despite lower R, I didn't build it out, because sending catalysts to the touch-up side makes it hardly less cycles than this solve. Okay, so it was an unsubmitted solve. Okay. This solve has less regular center. Each regent squeezes past arms differently. Debonding the third regent was thought to be a pain, but turns out being useful work to get it into the right rotation. That's actually a pretty slick move on the final debonding. Let me highlight it. So it pivots first to calcify. It'll translate across to get the water. And then it'll debond. And it's a pretty slick fun movement.
Yeah, it's a real pain to get things from that particular orientation to the right unless they're debonded. Like, if you have something in that orientation in a height solve, you're looking at actually several motions to be able to get it past the arms. The debonder saves the day.
Okay, so yeah, so I was mentioning with a debonder you can reduce the number of needed duplications, and this does show that. I believe there are only 2 duplications per product.
Yeah, one water becomes fire and one fire becomes water.
Yeah.
This is a good balance. Ivanov is a sum solver with a good height mind.
I think it's good. It's good height brain. Well, it remains to be seen whether it's good sum brain.
This also is one of the first solutions, I think, that has only had one side of the output with hearts on it. Like, the output is empty to the right.
Right, so you mean it's like way off on the end?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the other solves, there's been something on the other side of the output to pull it in. Because the glyphs go too far away and they block the arm from reaching the output. Unless something else on the other side pulls it in.
Also, Haxton pointing out in chat, is this the first Catalyst solve?
It might be.
The other duplication solves did, like, I know 7T Storms did something, like, it had like a one-time catalyst, and then it became the next regent, or whatever.
The Weekly gang also had a reuse, like, it did not take one catalyst, it was instead bumping into the neighbor input.
Yeah, it got, like, recycled, I think. But no, we will be definitely seeing more catalysts because, yeah, that's kind of that's gonna be your budget Burlow for this week because there is no proper Burlow. I do wonder if Burlow would have changed this puzzle much.
I would have not used it. Burlow's a pain.
Yeah, so that I'm thinking. I don't think I would have liked to use a Burlow for some. Duplication's expensive enough.
Fire are on opposite sides of the Burlow, and that's most of the duplication you want to do.
Yeah, right. And the duplication's already expensive enough without a Burlow wheel. Okay, moving on. We'll drop down 6 cycles to Witch Push with a 176. Okay, so this one's debonding. And it kind of does what I think is the more orthodox method of, it debonds both water atoms in the same way before doing the fire debond in a slightly different way. Here it's just, it pivots the other end onto the same debonder, which is a pretty neat motif.
Gosh, Rate really suffers though from, like, on cycle 13, fire is so far away from its bonding site.
Oh yeah, you can see that fire needs to do some work to get to, and like that's the next step that needs to be done, so yeah, it takes 4 cycles to get bonded from that point. It does the rest pretty slick though. Nice.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be struggling apart from just the amount of time it takes for that one fire.
Yeah, other than that, that one fire is severely limiting. Other than that, it's a pretty slick ringtail method.
I love how Arm 6 dodges the ring by moving around on the track.
Actually, Arm 6 does a lot of dodging the whole time. That's a good point. It's just that one pesky fire item. Really? Yeah, otherwise this is very good hide self.
I think it would only be 2 cycles faster if the fire wasn't limiting, because Arm 3 still has a lot of work to do as well, and it has a 2-cycle break.
Hmm. So I'm just looking, it's a bit unfortunate that Arm 3... It's not that unfortunate, but... Because Arm 6 is limiting anyway, but... It's kind of unfortunate that at this point, Arm 3 has to move out of the way purely so Arm 6 can get into its position. And that's the only time Arm 3 uses its track, because otherwise you might have been able to save a cycle on the regrab here, which might have been... I don't know, might have been able to do something to cut the rate a bit there, but unfortunately not. It would not have much mattered though. As we move on, we'll take a 20 cycle drop.
Seriously? Never mind then.
We do. In 5th place, Team 42.
Yeah, the 5 cycles that I saved did not matter.
Nope. Alright, and for yours, we will have to expand the screen, but just a bit.
It's the classic. I have really good throughput and latency's trash. This is 19R. The others have been over 20 by a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I have a similar approach to height, because when height, I'm also thinking, you know, let's get the rate down. They're giving us infinite width for a reason.
Yeah, the arm on the triangle track is the big assembler, and it manages to have a 19 cycle loop here. And then there's the fishing line to help actually move the pieces off to the side.
Arm 7's the MVP here. Also, Arm 1 is... I love Arm 1.
Yeah, that was the discount Burlow, and the catalyst is off to the left. It got broken up so that it could switch between elements more quickly than being an actual piece of 3.
It's almost reminiscent of the rotary phone method, except this one kind of has less downtime between rotations.
Yeah, it always puts the next colored's input over the input so that it just pushes that off and it has the new input available. I thought this start was really clever, but then also I thought this was going to be one of the better solves to use a fishing line. And this is the first one to use a fishing line, so the fish pun in the title was like, I did the fishing line on the fish solve. Maybe I'm just a dingus.
Maybe your prediction was wrong in that it did end up being an original title name / idea anyway.
Exactly. I thought I was not going to be the first fishing line shown on screen, even though this is just one wand. It's kind of barely a fishing line.
Yeah, Kelly Reeses is saying in chat, good puzzle for a fishing line. I don't mind a fishing line idea.
This is one day of work. It just surprises me that it dropped from 176 to here.
Yeah, that's you never know when the drop's gonna happen. That was the drop. Other than that, yeah, Arm 7, very slick construction method. It's kind of a ringtail method with a fishing line, basically. I think
this could be adapted into a 19R, although as it is, I did not bother to code it out. I was not giving it very much time. So it crashes at 6p, but if you could make it a 19R solve, I'm still curious by the end of this stream whether that would be the best rate or if it's also at fast there.
I don't know the faintest thing about fishing baits and fishing lines. I don't do that thing, but a ringtail sounds like the kind of thing that would be like a bait for a fishing line.
Like a worm type?
Yeah. Like, oh, let me just grab the ringtail. Yeah, this one will catch some salmon, some tuna. I don't know, I don't fish.
I appreciate the effort. I don't fish either, but I'm not going to say things like that.
Alright. keeping our relatively brisk pace. Oh, actually, it's not that brisk. We've been going out for 50 minutes already. Moving on to 4th place, we will drop a whopping 1 cycle to Fiesta Land. And there's a lot happening on both sides of the output here.
We are feeding it off to the right.
So it'll kind of so it just kind of does this real quick. It'll just give a bunch of inputs to the right side before it starts. And then it'll kind of do its own thing after it feeds like 2 outputs worth of pepper spray.
I think it's 6 outputs worth of 3 of the atoms in the output. Oh wait, no, it's assembling it from both sides. It literally is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay, so I think I might have miscounted. So there's 1 output. There's 2 outputs. Right? Did I miscount?
It builds 4 from the left and 2 from the right. It's just really strange to parallelize it this way, and I'm amazed that it works out this fast.
The bonding method being used here is the layers method that we saw Calliuresis use, which is making a return. No, I think it's proving its worth here, the layers construction method. I well used it. Let me read the notes here. The notes are pretty cool. With only the left side mechanisms, this basic idea got down to 192 cycles at 1p and 183 at 6p. The right side machinery still feels ugly and hacky to us, but there's no denying it saves a lot. Not really layers, it's 2/3 and 1/3. The other one more explicit. Yeah, okay, that's a fair point. It's still, I think it's from that layers attitude where, like, specifically the last layer is the most important layer because that's the most geometrically constraining. Yeah, no, that's cool.
So the left side has a duplication stick.
Yeah, the left side has a catalyst, but the right side doesn't.
Yeah, it uses the duplication to construct a fire and some water, but the right side is just purely bonding, which is probably why it only gets to make 2 outputs in the time it takes the left to make 4.
Right.
It just solved the puzzle 2 entirely different ways, and also, this is the first time I've ever seen the output be pushed in from the red side.
That's a good point. No one's actually been doing that at all. Everyone's been pushing it in from the tail side. I don't know whether there's something actually mechanically important about favoring the... I think it's because people usually just construct the ring first. So it makes sense to just...
The ring takes up more space, so you kind of need it ahead of your machinery better.
Yeah, right. You want it out of the way, so you want to do it first. Except this solve doesn't do that, because, yeah, this solve, I think what necessitates this kind of layers-ish method is the fact that it has to build the ring last, which might go to explaining why it only builds 2 in the time this one builds 4. Because not only does this one have a catalyst to work with, so less debonding, if any debonding. Yeah, there's a bit of debonding, but yeah, it also, this left side gets to build the ring first. Well, actually, it's still kind of layers, but it does do it in a more convenient way. What's the Lex C on this one? Pretty high, because the first output does not get made for a while. Yeah, first output doesn't get made till cycle 68.
Did it have to drop on 68 or could it have waited 1? Yeah, that arm has downtime.
It could have waited. And then the first one's like 97 or something. Sorry, the second one is like 97 or something.
Yeah, we would need to actually get the Lexi calculator on this. I'm not about to sit here and count. Especially because the cycle numbers on the bottom stop after 6, so you don't even get to see it counting up further.
So there is a definite favoring, though, of this catalyst idea that preserves more bonds over the debonding everything method in this particular solve. We'll see whether that affects the top three's thinking towards this puzzle at all, or whether they go for something different. Which brings us to our top three. So coming in at third place, also at 155 cycles, but with 730 cost, is Mr. Puzzle.
Who had said, I'm hype-brained confirmed in the chat. Oh my goodness me. And this is cheaper because it only has one pipeline.
Yeah, I know. It's cheaper just because, despite the fact that there are like there's still like a solid 22 arms. It's a way more expensive pipeline. It's just that there's only one of them. So anyone who remembers the winning height solve from this year's tourney will recognize this idea of having just a big snake pipeline and just using that snake pipeline to order your atoms properly and then constructing them one at a time in a pretty nice ringtail method. And so this is one bonder in particular that does a lot of work here, which is very nice because it kind of takes advantage of the fact that all the bonds in the output are 120 degrees apart from each other.
Yeah, this is definitely slick. I always like compressing things into a smaller height than the machinery needs to be, so you can transport them quicker and get the arms behind them again, because a lot of the problem in height is once your arms are kind of downstream of your atoms, you get trapped into that unless you manage to make a chain and then push the chain naturally so that your arms can be behind it again, like it's done on the second part of this. But I only ever thought about compressing this down to 2 height of atoms. And Mr. Puzzle compressed it down to 1 height of atoms, and now things run faster.
Yeah, so this one runs at 21R, which almost matches up to Team 42's solve.
Yeah, this one has much better latency.
Yeah.
I thought that I might be able to reduce the latency by 2 if I spent another hour staring at it, and I did not. But that would have been 2 placements, at least.
It absolutely would have. It would have been a top 3 berth. You just needed a couple cycles. Because, yeah, this is exactly the same cycle count as Fiesta Lands, just better secondaries. Reading the notes, it reads, just Mr. Puzzle this week, kinda phoning it in. That's a top 3 solve, everyone. Couldn't get duplicated to help speed things up. Should have combined the large track loops, but I've been busy. I don't think anyone will blame you. But yeah, that's why there are 2 big track loops. There could have just been the one, but that would have required reprogramming, and would it have even saved any cycles? I don't think so.
I think it would have allowed the arms to be behind the atoms more quickly. The question, though, is whether the timing of when the debonds happen, because you can't debond and then push the stick into it again. There has to be some gap cycles.
Yeah.
So it might be kind of awkward to do it that way.
So maybe Mr. Puzzle would know whether making it one big track loop would actually improve the cycle count or not, though. And whether it would have improved it by much. But yeah, pretty naturally height-brained for someone just quote-unquote phoning it in.
That trapezoid track doing the assembly is also really tight.
Yes.
It has atoms on 2 tiles and arms on the other 3 at several points.
See if I can find one of those points. There's one such point. All 5 hexes are taken. Oh, I missed another one. But the cycle before the one I freeze-framed it on was also one of them. And then it just loops. Yeah, so there are 2 points. And I missed the second point again. Cool. There it is. Let's wait for the stream delay.
It's difficult to plan that sort of thing for me. I felt proud that I was able to get a triangle track with a single arm on it, not to crash. 3 arms is wild.
Okay, Cuckoo52 of the belief that one big track loop would in fact be way better. So that has my interest.
Cuckoo52 is a master of the single track loop.
Cuckoo52 would know whether one big track loop would be better. That is a very good point.
I've wondered before, and I don't think I got an answer because I didn't think I wondered in Cuckoo52's general direction. Or maybe I got an answer and it was just a smiley face. Do you use an established method for programming enormous track loops, or do you just kind of know how to do it?
I mean, I know. I'm not one to program enormous track. I don't know. I wouldn't plan it out, just because I rarely plan anything out in this game. But that's not necessarily wise.
You know exactly where that arm is going. Do you do like the staircase trick, but on a grand scale, to get the other arms to all agree with it? How do you make all the arms agree? It's too big to do it the staircase method unless you're like Wizard of Staircase.
I still don't have the staircase method committed to memory. I still don't really... Like, I know how to do it. It's just... I know. I kind of made do without it all this time.
You don't look at puzzles and think, I'm going to CG solve this one, and I do.
Yeah, that's probably a contributing factor. Alright, gonna move on. Our top 2. Specifically second place, we will take a drop of 10 cycles to Bambi at 145.
145, fantastic.
I can even zoom in a bit.
This is cheaper too. This is a cheap fast solve.
I'm gonna try not to cut off the Critelli.
It's doing the same thing that Team 42's did, where it has that... yeah, this is exactly Team 42's catalyst setup.
Yep.
But it's using a debonder in addition to it, so that it... And it's using the fishing line. This is just all of the ideas that I thought I was clever for coming up with, but done much more compactly for latency's sake.
It is
single debonder.
It is absolutely Team 42 solve, but just with a way better latency. It's also 6
Team 42 is duping every single... Team 42 is duping every single element. I think you might have it confused with a previous solve that was duping only fire and water, but ours was duping every single element. Everything first hit the calcifier and then went on to the duplicator.
That's what this is doing, isn't it? Oh no, this is not what this is doing. Okay, yeah.
This is doing the same thing. I'm pointing at redstone.
Oh, sorry. Alright, so I'm like, wait, I got it right, didn't I?
You got it right. This is an identical match. It's ordering the atoms slightly differently because it is able to break a bond to get fire to be more convenient.
This is 20R, so it's even a little worse on the R than yours. It's just the latency is that much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, this is so much smarter, and yet I feel like I got the macroscopic idea right. I just didn't get it to this level of robustness.
See, that was me in height in the tournament. I had the same idea that Panopy came up with. It's just that I've never height optimized before, so I had the idea just in a suckier method, and then to see it pop up in like the top 5 or 3 or wherever Pentapig came, I'm like, yes, I knew this idea was good. That was my reaction more so than, oh man, I wish I implemented it better, because I ran out of time, so I didn't really blame myself too much for that. Interesting waste chain there.
Yeah, the effort to make it actually loop is nice. I feel a little bad that I had to solve that would crash as soon as it hit the completion screen.
Okay, I'm going to attempt to read the notes here. Buckle in. So, Colors of Sacrifice is the title of this poem. In a land of azure seas and golden shore, there lived a man whose heart held angler's lore. With rod in hand and eyes full of delight, he sought the wonders hidden beneath the light. His line cast forth, with bait so carefully set, a dance of hope, his silhouette silhouetted. The water's surface rippled in its reply, as life beneath awakened, ready to comply. The man, he caught fish of hues so rare, their scales shimmered, an artist's vivid affair. A rainbow realm beneath the surface deep, where green, blue, and red merged in secrets to keep. But fate would twist with a cruel design. For every seventh fish would face a decline. Its hunger deceived, the hook it would consume. The dance of life devoured, a premature tomb. I think that's the waist chain.
It is, that's amazing.
The once vibrant creature, now lifeless and frail, would drift to the surface, because it's going up, a ghostly veil. Its colours drained, replaced by pallid white. A testament to chance and nature's cruel plight. Yet, undeterred, the man persisted still, reeling in the treasures that the waters spill. With every seventh fish a sacrifice made, to witness a spectacle that couldn't be swayed. Fish after fish, the tower began to rise, a solemn monument reaching towards the skies, a testament to life's cycles and its cost. As nature claimed its toll, the man was not lost. For in that towering stack of fish so grand, he saw the fragility of life firsthand, a mosaic of existence woven in hues, a reminder of mortality and the choices we choose. So let us marvel at this angler's tale of colours caught and sacrifices that prevail, for in the pursuit of beauty we often find that life's fragile tapestry is lovingly entwined. Written by ChatGPT.
Oh, come on, I was gonna praise it.
When I first read that, I was fooled so hard. I was salty that was ChatGPT.
I am salty. I was thinking about, like, bravo, maybe Bambi's like another, like, notes master, like Kazian, or like maybe you would be if like a Chat GPT poem. Rip. It's still good, it's just not human good.
See, now I can't praise it for its, like, being technically good, because I know that bit just came easily to the freaking machine. I'm still impressed at how well it references this particular solve, though.
Yeah, I mean, prompt engineering is still a thing, but it's not the same as writing.
Yeah, no, this is like pretty clever prompt engineering on Bambi's part. I'll still give Bambi praise for that. The line silhouetted kind of gave me a stroke trying to read it, though. Now that I know it's written.
This is 20R and not 19 because it is pivoting two of the inputs before pushing them off of the input.
Yeah, 20
This is longer.
Oh, okay.
That's the fundamental limit for 20, but also it's making really good use of that. I'm just trying to think on a technical reason, like, is there something that would be better than this? And, like, obviously there's a solve that's better than this, but I'm wondering if I can think of it. I see John in chat. Is it Cy John Drass who wins this week?
Yes, it is. Good call.
Maybe.
By a single cycle, no less. Congratulations, Team Cy John Drass. I think this is your first win of the year. I'm not. Actually, might be.
Is this 18R? Yeah, it's grabbing an input every 6, so that's 18R. Well done.
Yeah, 18R. See, the best rate did win in the end.
I'm pleased both that Bambi's solve with 145 had a very similar method to the one I came up with, and then a rate monster one. Height as all well with the low.
So this looks like so yeah, almost the start. It's kind of reminiscent of what Mr. Puzzle did, but with a catalyst to make the order of atoms that come out from the debonder kind of more convenient to work with, which makes the ringtail construction a lot easier.
And yeah, having the triplets that come forwards be in this orientation means that you can safely rotate them at length 2. So the construction is just so much cleaner here. I look at that length 2 fixed arm on the triangle track that's doing most of the construction, and I'm just jealous that it gets to be so easy because of how well this is planned.
Right, it kind of feels like it's not as much of a pain in the ass to construct this than a couple of the other top solves we saw.
I mean, yeah, you pivot the little triplets one time clockwise and it becomes a nightmare, but because it was constructed atom by atom, you can get away with them being pushed forwards in this orientation, which helps the rate.
Yosh called out ARM 10 in chat, and I think that's a good shout. It kind of handles 2 of the 3 parts in an eerily similar way, and it doesn't even need to be a piston to do useful work. That's how good it is.
Yeah, that's the arm I was saying I felt jealous of.
Oh.
It only gets to do that because it's built its height 2 fishes in this orientation, which, if you work backwards, this becomes much more obvious, but who works backwards?
Who works backwards? Couldn't be me. I hear Pentapig does a lot of working backwards. That's how he generally rolls.
I often regret not working backwards after I've done a lot of sunk cost into not working backwards.
ARM 6 and 7 are very nice. Yeah, the rate kind of works out perfectly for ARM 6 and 7 to not have a dead cycle at all.
Yeah, 18R is kind of the... Since it's a 9 atom output, that is 1 atom every 2 cycles, 1 input every 6, and all of those seem like pretty fundamental barriers here.
And it seems like
a pretty... 18R would be a nightmare.
Yeah, it almost seems like, it seems like a pretty bit of a Goldilocks region for rate, 18R, if you can manage it. Because, yeah, you get to do stuff like that and not have any dead instructions whatsoever. It's a really cool solve. I really like how sensibly this is all kind of laid out. Which I guess is one of the big benefits of potentially working backwards.
Yeah, I love this. This deserves the win, and I'm glad it got it.
Okay, shall we talk about some next, is what I'm seeing in chat. Yes! I think it's time to finally crack open the sum solves. Bit of context. Midweek, I posted a bet that for everyone who beat my sum solve, I will have a spoonful of hot sauce. And I posted the bottle. It's some nice habanero hot sauce with hints of mango and lemon. Whether I'll be able to taste either the mango or the lemon is another matter entirely. I didn't really... I was gonna get something kind of not that hot and just be able to have a fair amount of it, but the bottle says extra hot, so I'm a little scared. I didn't get a Scoville rating on it, unfortunately, so I couldn't tell you how many Scovilles it is. Yeah, now, see that the pressure's off you for some, but I'm feeling, well, at least I know the results, so I know what happens, but yeah, I felt pressure. I did very much put a target on my back for some. So I think that kind of stepped up people's I rose to the challenge a bit. So let me get out of this, boot up the old parser. What are your thoughts on some, Biggie?
I gave it one attempt. I did not explore very far, and I think that I will be in the first half of results shown, but I'm happy because it was a cool looking solve.
Okay.
If I do better than I expected, I'll be shocked, I guess.
Okay.
I think duplication is expensive, so I made a debonder solve, and that seems to be the only thing I can imagine working here. But let's see.
So there's a question. So I guess until this point, we've been asking what's most convenient for height. But some, I think it's more fair to ask what's more convenient in general. And we're not focusing on right here. We just want what's most convenient. Yeah, so it's... I don't know, I really liked this as a sum puzzle because whether you went duplication or debonding or maybe both, it remained very unclear how exactly to go about it no matter what, and I found there were some real cool tricks. Because the way I think of sum, I think of it in terms of movement. That is the movement mostly of the atoms and how that ties into your order of operations, and really just constructing a well-balanced solve relies on that kind of thing as to, like, being able to find the most efficient way to get this thing on a bonder right, or in just the right way so that I can do something to it immediately afterwards. So kind of you want a rather natural order of operations on things. So, I'll show that solve later. It's a speed solve. Alright. Starting at 15th place, we have a new submitter to the Weeklies. Welcome to the Weeklies, Filthy Casual.
Hey, new person.
And with a name like that, I'm not gonna judge this solve, even if it's terrible.
I mean, it's not terrible, though.
It's not, yeah, it's not terrible. It's not even terrible.
It's keeping it rather compact. It has division of labor decently well. Arm 1 has mostly dead time, but still, it's decent division of labor. It's just kind of expensive and not trying to be as elegant as a sum solve might end up being if you're good.
The notes read, I am a filthy casual who just likes to watch the robot arms move. And to that I say valid.
This is a CY.
So, yeah, we saw a lot of the ring pale method in height, but I think for some, expect to see a bit more of the cyan method. Because now that height is no longer much of a factor, it is generally, it's quite natural to just have one half where you don't need the fire to go anywhere near it, and one half where you don't need the water to go anywhere near it, and then join the two up at the end. I will say, for the most part, having that CY method, the final couple bonds end up being surprisingly annoying. This one just has a multi-bonder, so it's not a problem for this solve. Also, outputting can be surprisingly annoying on this puzzle.
True. True that.
And yeah, it's funny. Area matters, I think, more than usual for this puzzle. I think area truly matters on this one.
Yeah, I think the only time I can think of when we did sum on a really big output, it was elemental joule setting, which is not even a normal big, it's a plan around it big. But this is that sweet spot where you have to account for the size of the output without making it the central point of your intention.
Zorflex designing a sum puzzle where area actually matters. Damn right. Where is Zorf's solve? Oh, when the time comes. Oh, I will not be. I won't be. I won't be. I won't be spilling the beans until I need to. That is, if I need to, because I guess.
If it's not beaten by anything here, are you going to do what someone suggested and like give us another week as a community to try to beat it before you spill it?
I want to do that. Yes, I'm gonna say
Okay.
if my solve isn't beaten, I won't tell you the score. I won't show the solve, and it'll be Zorflax versus the world, and you can just kind of work on that alongside next week's puzzle as a community. Just openly, just try and beat Zorflax. I like that idea a lot.
You know, if applicable.
If applicable. And I did see that idea and I thought, oh, that would be cool. Alright, next up, in 14th place, we drop down to 474 with 7 T-Storm. I need another fishing rod here. This almost looks hype-brained, this solve.
It's using a lot of input suppression, which is kind of neat in terms of an area savings, and then it swings it quite a long distance anyway at the end.
So pure D, pure D bonding, another cyan method. Very focused on height, so yeah. Which is kind of funny. But yeah, that is the longest piece of track you will see for some by far today. Track is usually pretty expensive. But other than that, it is kind of nice. I do like this initial debonding step here, where it kind of bonds these two bits together, and that's some pretty cool debonding to separate the fire from the water. And at the end, it won't do a kind of normal cyan method because it'll kind of do this debond, kind of bond debond, and then worry about the cyan bonding at the end.
I wonder if there is a more area efficient way to deliver the product. It does seem like it's taking care to reduce area by reducing height, and then it spins it over so much extra tiles.
It'd be nice if you could output it somewhere up here, where all this used area is, but all the arms are length 1, so you can't do that.
Yeah. Oh, she says read the notes. That's a good point.
The note says, "'cause the other one broke." That
I need another fishing rod here because the other one broke.
I see now. Oh. This is surely on the height sum Pareto frontier. If only sum got its own place on the Pareto frontier. Actually, how would that affect the Pareto frontier?
Imagine things that are on the sum plus something else Pareto frontier are on the Pareto frontier as well because of the combination of whatever stuff goes into sum.
I liked that weighted sum chart that I think RPO did.
Yeah, really, the Vorma tessellation. Yes.
That was really cool.
Provide me with an amazing graph that kind of conveys a concept, so it requires a lot of additional overhead to figure out, and then it's really cool.
Some Pareto, please no. We'll try and preserve what remains of your spare time, Kazian. Alright. Moving on. We'll take a drop of 44 down to Redstone Paradox. No notes here. Again, same, kind of similar attitude to Redstone Paradox's height solve, except it's just less height-brained. It'll do just a nice traditional debonding method. nice cyan bonding method, which I think is going to be kind of the orthodox thing to do for some. It's nice. It bonds the last water on at the same time as the Y is bonded to the C.
I wonder if ARM 8 could have translated before pivoting to save some area, or if that crashes into stuff.
I think that does crash. Wait, does it? Yeah, that would crash.
Oh, right, because it would be pushing it onto that debonder.
Yeah, you'd be putting on the debonder hex, and yes, stuff is moving. The only thing really about the solve is that it's expensive, because I don't think Redstone Paradox took much. I don't think they bothered paying much attention to the cost, because they won't bother optimizing it much. So yeah, no, I think this puzzle seems to suit Redstone Paradox pretty well. I think their kind of method of going about it kind of made the puzzle look a bit easier than a couple of the other solves. At least a couple of the other people, at least initially. I don't know, people were talking about how this is a hard sum puzzle, and I guess it's hard to optimize, because there's a lot of things that almost work and a lot of annoying non-ideas. And for some, you just want to find the quickest way to, like, I don't know, you want to find the easiest order of operations and find the nicest geometry for them. And both of those things are very non-obvious, this puzzle. But anyway, this is a good solve. I like it. Well done, Redstone Paradox. Alright, we move on to 12th place, and we will be taking a 79 point drop down to 351.
Sick.
This submitted to us by Please 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 Lol. I'll have to zoom out a bit for this one. Alright, so this is...
Oh, duplicatory.
Duplicatory? It's also got a pretty funky ringtail method happening, as opposed to a cyan method. So yeah, because of the presence of a debonder, there only needs to be 2 duplications.
This has a really good look to it. It does seem to take up quite a lot of area, though, and it's not fast enough for how expensive it is, but it does have a really good vibe.
It does have a pretty good vibe. I do think it's a fair point on the expense, though. Particularly if we look at how much is spent on glyphs. That's 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 G spent on glyphs, which will be more than most other people spend on glyphs. Because usually with the debonder method, you would want to try and save on the other glyphs, because debonder means you don't have to use I know you want to try to avoid spending too much gilder on bonders and debonders, because the duplicator and the calcifier are both needed, and that's 30G right off the bat.
Yeah, I guess the one thought is, though, whenever you're thinking, I don't want to use too many bonders, you look for patterns that allow for bonder reuse, and this output really doesn't provide you with very many of them.
It's... No, it does not.
This is one of the more impressively stubborn bonder-debonder puzzles that I've ever seen.
I'm taking that as a pretty fat compliment, by the way.
It should be. I know. You've put a challenge of a different flavor than I'm used to. It's a spicy puzzle.
Spicy is the word.
I've got 6,000 hours in this game, and I've not experienced what this puzzle put me through.
Okay. Let's move on. Dropping down 2 points, we have Team Saijondras, We can definitely give them a pass on some, considering how they literally won height, so that's fair.
Yeah, a bit ago, I think he said in chat, "Now I don't care at all how our/my sum solve does."
Okay, so I'm going to read the notes first here. I kind of had tunnel vision on the idea of using a catalyst. I really wonder if it was a good idea for some. As usual, when I do a sum solve, this is a rather expensive but fast solve, which might be the wrong trade-off. It's actually going to be very interesting how the trade-offs pan out, because I think it's very unclear whether you want to be going faster or not. Obviously, we all have our stakes in the ground, but which one wins, or whether there'll be a clear winner, is up for debate.
I think it was Horn Silver where I completely gave up on the notion that cycles and costs should be similar for a good sum solve. You just kind of build a bunch. Because Horn Silver was like a factor of 3. Cost was so much higher than cycles.
I think it's puzzle dependent. This puzzle it's very unclear. But something like Horn Silver, I think it's a lot more clear that you don't want the cycle count to be anywhere near the cost count because you need a lot of glyphs necessarily. Your cost is going to be high anyway, so you may as well get that cycle count down. So kind of, I know, a couple of factors is how glyph heavy the puzzle is and like how much movement, how many steps are needed. And Horn Silver is a dispersion puzzle. So that's glyph expensive and annoying movement both there, right there. So it's going to be expensive no matter what.
I really like how Arm 3's grab points alternate between one end and the other end of it, because that's how a single length arm should be able to do that. That's just visually satisfying to me.
It's a pretty cool, yeah, I don't mind this. So, yeah, so this is an example of how you would use, so this is another duplicator method, but it's pure duplicator. It has to do all 4 duplications, but it does save
It does 9. It does all 9 duplications.
Oh, wait, yeah, you're right. Sorry, it does all 9. Damn.
It's the same as was done in the height solve, where it was just assembly line conveyor belt over calcifier onto the duplicator. Like, you don't care that the input has its prescribed order. It's just a set of catalysts.
You know, it's interesting. It could actually be the case where the height solve kind of colored the impression on some here. Because
yeah, you're saying that in chat for sure.
Oh, they are saying that in chat. Okay, I didn't see chat. There you go. That was literally just my guess. Yeah, it's confirmed. I will say, yeah, compared to just kind of the broad field, 160G is a little above average. So is the cycle count. The area count's not too far off where you want to be. That is, unless you want to go for something really small, which you can, but yeah. Just to give you a sense on where on the Pareto frontier this would lie in terms of expense versus cycles versus area, how well it did. Because yeah, some of them will lead towards fast but expensive, and some of them will lead towards slow but cheap. And this is a good example of a solve that is kind of in between both.
Yeah, John, I can guarantee yours is out Pareto just with my own stats.
Okay, that brings us to the top 10. At 336, we have Bambi.
I like Arm 1. It's lustrous syruping at length 2.
It is. It's a length 2 lustrous syrup. See, this one definitely is more on the expensive but fast end of the scale, with a pretty big area to boot. A lot of length 2 and 3, in fact, all the arms are either length 2 or length 3. And yeah, more of a what is this? This isn't a method of kind of. So it'll bond like it'll bond two different 4-atom molecules together before getting the last water on, which is very unorthodox.
Yeah, this does not match a method. It's kind of just opportunistic. Build what you can and go for the next piece next. The fact that it reverses the fire from one side of the input to the other means that it kind of has a sub part of the output to build around, but it's not embedded in CY or ringtail.
Yeah. It is debonding classically, I'll say that. It does debond two water atoms, and the water atoms all go to one end. It's just that the fire atom kind of stays on the water end, and that bond is kind of it's rearranged rather than discarded completely. So the C doesn't have to be a full C, and it just kind of does the last water atom at the very end because that's kind of what worked out best. If I had to guess, I'd say this is forward first thinking.
I'd agree.
The 5-track is unfortunate. Yeah, that's an unfortunate expense here for it. Yeah. Spicy lustrous syrup. That's probably the biggest thing. Take a look. Yeah, it's probably that track would that doesn't give me the good sum vibes.
If we cut 25 sum from this by somehow magicking the track to be free, I wonder whether it moves up several placements.
I'm just doing the math in my head.
311.
No, not that math. Sorry. Oh, well, actually, yes, that math, but just seeing how many spaces it moves up. A couple. Before that, we have a host solve.
Not a Zorflex solve, though, right?
Not a Zorflex solve, no. No. Good lord. That would have been 9 spoons of hot sauce. Good lord.
Your hot sauce sounds like you got a good one. I would be excited to have some of that, like, recreationally.
Panic was telling me in the Weeklies chat about how it looks legitimately tasty. I actually have not tried it. I don't know how tasty / spicy it is. Okay, so looking at the notes real quick. The 5-atom C doesn't contain any water, and the 4-atom Y doesn't contain any fire. So it seemed like a good way to divide the output. So just a general comment on the benefits of the CY strategy.
It does keep all its arms busy. It's just that there's a lot to do. I'm not sure it's doing the right a lot.
I think where this solve kind of... The reason this doesn't do better is you can have a look here. Arm 2 has been almost completely enveloped in the C, and Arm 4 has to do a fair amount of work getting it out before it can... And it takes a few cycles to get that C onto the Y, which is a bit of a problem because one of the biggest challenges of the cyan method in sum is that final bond. Because getting one of the bonds on is fine, but getting the other one on is a bit of a pain in the ass. So this one has to like do a translate and a pivot, and that's okay there. But on top of having to uncover Arm 2, there is kind of a lot of cycles there.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know whether this is a solution where a second bonder for that task would have made it better. I guess Hexton's probably iterated that small way and figured out that this is the best way to do it. But it's unfortunate. I guess it's because Arm 4 is already on a track. This is a pretty solve, for sure. It's just, it's hard to get it all to feel good.
Yeah. I think this is a good example of the constraining, kind of challenging geometry of this puzzle. It just can't really afford to pull inputs quicker or anything like that, despite the fact that it kind of wants to. You see, yeah, I know. It's kind of designed to be as fast as it is, I guess. So, I guess the extra work Arm 4 does isn't that much of a problem. It's just, yeah. I will say 132 is kind of on the slower end. Tough crowd to impress. I'm being super critical. Yeah, I know. I'm usually not this critical. It's just a spicy puzzle.
I guess I'm hoping to see something that makes me feel like, oh, there's the elegant magic that this solve deserves, and I don't know that there's actually anything that does that for this puzzle, but we're not at top spot yet, so...
Right, yeah. Okay, next up. We drop down 14 points to Mr. Puzzle. So, 160, 88, 73. So that is a bit more expensive. That is way faster than average. But that area is also much higher than average.
Oh yeah, it's got length 3 arms all over the place.
This is one of the...
It looks great.
It does. Yeah.
Is it doing a lustrous syrup thing on the... Not really. It's just grabbing the air-water thing.
That's a cool swing. That final bit.
Yosh is pointing out, this should be trackless. Arm 3 doesn't use the track it's on.
Oh, Mr. Puzzle never took the track out. Yo, what is that? It should be a 311. Yeah, literally just... It works. Tut, tut. Would the 10-point drop matter? It would have improved one placement. RPO sandbagging. Well, RPO didn't help this week. That's why Mr. Puzzle as a team aren't doing as well. I tell you, Mr. RPO's got the sauce. Not the hot sauce, just the general skilled sauce. The notes read, just Mr. Puzzle this week. Kind of phoning it in. Probably too many arms. The last 2 bonders are probably not needed.
That's the second bonder so that it doesn't have to solve the problem of making that last bond.
Yeah, that's the last bond problem. It just doesn't really bother trying to solve that in a tricky way. It just puts another bonder and just will do an extra rotation. I actually don't mind. Well, alright, pretend the track isn't there. And I don't mind the cost cycles trade-off here. It's a lot of area, really. Because, yeah, I think this solve takes a bit of an area. I don't think area was considered very much in this solve, and it hurts a surprising amount. Because area does matter this week. I do like this, the swing I'm about to play is really nice.
It dodges water on fire. I don't know what the margin is there, but it's probably pretty tight.
And also, yeah, it will also pivot the rest of the C ring on that same swing, which I think... Does that matter? No, it doesn't actually matter, but,
I mean, it wouldn't have succeeded on that swing if it didn't pivot on that cycle, because it swings through where the fire ends up.
Right, yeah. So it does actually matter. I'll take that back. But yeah, it is funny how much area mattered this week. That's what I'll say to that solve. So moving on. Our next solve comes in at 314. Submitted by Fiestaland. Solve title Fish Pie.
Fish puns.
Fish puns.
Oh wow, we're using a duplicator in
a duplicator. The duplicator makes a return. And to that end, I will read the notes. Budget Burlo felt super convenient. We tried debonding and reassembly as well, but it just felt so much more awkward. Whatever we saved on duplication machinery was lost to arms, bonders, and shuffling.
Yeah, it is appealing to save on all of the debonders and really simplify the bonding task by having it just be 3 plus 3 plus 3 equals fish. But duplicators are so expensive.
And this one actually also suffers, it's not a biggie, but it has to do an extra duplication, which I don't think it really matters, but because it just like it will immediately swing to where it needs to go anyway. So that's the final duplication that is the extra one. I don't think that's actually a problem, but so yeah, looking at where it is on the Pareto Frontier, low area count this time. That's a better area count, and is probably why it stacks up to the last solve, at least with that annoying superfluous track. But yeah, 150G, a little above average on expense, and the cycle count is kind of also above average. It kind of makes up for it with a low area. So one of my gripes with the duplication method, and I do have gripes with it, is that, I don't know, it's hard to see how a duplication method can make a sum solve go pretty fast without needing a lot of expense. Because, like, it's just like you have to calcify and duplicate either 2 things with a debonder or 4 things without one. And that means all those atoms that have to be on a duplicator first have to go on a calcifier. And you're not allowed, and you can't really, and that's like your whole molecule kind of being held hostage while that's happening. And you can't really do anything else, like introduce any kind of sneak in any bonds while that's happening. So I think it necessarily slows down duplication. That's just my kind of take on it.
It makes sense to me also because the rest of the process is actually so simple when you're duplicating that it does lead to ARM 3 having quite a lot of just sitting and waiting.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I guess it works out, like, at this speed, it works. But if this is the speed you get for having to buy a duplicator, I don't know that it's going to be able to compete.
I think with that, we will move on. Our next solve comes in at 301 sum. And this one is submitted to us by the Weeklies gang. Another duplicator.
Don't care about that instruction secondary.
Yeah, all the duplicator solves. I can it's funny. I can almost instantly tell which ones are the duplicator solves because they're the 6p ones, with one exception, but that's cool. But yeah, duplication method necessarily has to be 6p, so it also means a trash secondary for whatever that's worth. In some, secondaries don't really matter too much, but yeah.
It's cool that this one managed just to cut an arm on the previous one.
So yeah, this one, I do like how it goes about the actual duplication itself better, because here the calcifier is kind of away from the duplicator, and care is taken to give arm 1 a lot of maneuverability to make sure it's kind of swinging where it needs to swing, and helping make arm 3's job easier. And as Biggie mentioned, yeah, there's just like, that means you don't need a 4th arm. And yeah, so the cycles isn't really helped, but the cost is, and the area is almost the same as the last solve. I will reveal that this is the last duplication solve. So yeah, it got its run. It didn't quite get under 300. Honestly, when I looked at this solve, I thought this looked about as low as duplication goes. I tried duplication when I was playtesting, and I couldn't get it to 301. So, yeah, I'm not sure duplication goes much lower than this. If at all. This is a very good duplication solve. One is really proving its worth on that triangle track there. Also, we are at 301. I did consider anything under 300 as, like, really good sum solve. So this almost cracks into that, even with being a duplicator. So I will definitely give it that. But yeah, overall, duplicator ends up being a bit of a trap. Because yeah, no, there are no more duplicator solves other than this. I do think it's a matter of, it just means you're never going to be that cheap and all that fast, and you want one or the other, maybe both, but this one kind of puts a lower bound on your cycle count and also your cost count, because duplicators are just expensive, so you're always going to be using a lot of gilder on glyphs no matter what, even with just the 2 bonders. Whereas you spend that 50 gilder on, like, you can get 4 bonders and a debonder for that price. And, I mean, 4 bonders gives you, like, a lot of room to work with when it comes to the debonding method. So I do think that's kind of why duplication lost out in the end. Moving on. We do go under 300. Coming in at 298 is Calyresis.
Sub 300. Hey, you said 4 bonders and a debonder. That's a prescient observation.
4 bonders and a debonder. Would you look at that? So this one's slightly cheaper because it uses less track. The cycle count is very similar. It's a very similar score to the previous one in general, but I think it's, what is it? Yeah, I think it's just the main 10G of gold kind of makes up for the windfall in area and cycles compared to the last solve. Also, I know a lot of people were ruining the lack of Burlow Spinny. This solve has some pretty good spinny.
Yeah, one does 8 cycles of rotation in a row.
Yeah, it does 12 overall before resetting. So it ends up not needing to reset, funnily enough. But yeah, it's a very unorthodox debonding method here. So as you can see, it's looking to debond 1 fire and 2 water. And it'll go about that in a funny way because the fire is debonded with arm 1 just spinning it. And it comes back around while arm 3 pivots the second region into place, bonding that water atom onto the previously debonded atom pair. And it'll debond the whole thing while also constructing a bit more of the C shape. Arm 3 once again pivoting for that second water atom to come off, but this time before it comes off, it'll already have been connected to the Y. So arm 1 has debonded it there. So you have the C and the Y on cycle 14, but from here it's just a matter of getting that C out of arm 1 because arm 1's kind of enveloped by it. And arm 3 does a pretty good job of helping with that before arm 2 outputs.
This kind of has the bones of a ridiculous TI solve. Because it's accumulating something interesting by doing the same-ish thing several times in a row, which is like a TI's staple. But it's so it's getting to do slightly more nuanced stuff each pass, so it doesn't have to just repeat, but it's getting efficient.
This is a very complicated solve to have worked out.
I'm curious, you press 2, it seems like it should be using a lot of area to the right of the input, but it might not be.
It's a fair bit, but not quite as much as you think.
That's only 5 hexes. It feels like it's using a lot more, but it always breaks stuff off first.
It's actually the bit where it uses the most hexes is probably when Arm 2 swings upwards here to put the Y in place. And then Arm 3 kind of reuses that to pivot to get that last bond. Because here, Arm 3 is kind of conveniently positioned to... Because there's the second bonder that's right there. I think that bonder, if I'm not mistaken, I think that bonder's purely there for the sake of handling that final bond. That dastardly final bond that ends up being a pain in the ass on the CY method.
One.
So here it's not really a pain. It just you're buying an extra bonder, but you're already at a pretty low cost, so you're more than happy to pay for that extra bonder. And Arm 2's got a pretty nice swing to output, only eating a single hex, which is pretty nice. Other solves were not so lucky.
Also, I love how Arm 2 drops the output, and the next action it is doing is a useful grab, because that's just where the piece ends up, right on the spot out Arm 2 outputs. This has really good feeling, and the spinning is cool.
Calories is pointing out, yeah, both of the last bonds both needed a new bonder. Yeah, it didn't occur to me that the other one was also a one-use bonder, which is unfortunate, because this could have been really cheap, but nevertheless, that is still on the cheaper end. But yeah, this would be an example of a cheaper but slower solve though. That cycle and gold count are really close to each other. And 50 area is about where I found, like, that was a good, like, average point for many of the, like, sum optimized solves. So I considered 50 area kind of like par. Like, yeah. So you can kind of think about area like that, because the area considerations often exist independently of the... Usually it comes hand in hand with your cost, but it surprisingly doesn't for this puzzle. It's kind of its own consideration.
Oh, I definitely added cost to reduce area for mine.
Right, yeah, okay. That's an interesting point.
That was just the reusing a bond, or reusing a bonder was going to cost me more than 10 other sum. So I added a bonder to make it easier.
Swing of the week. Yeah, we can give Arm 1 rotate of the week, just for its 8 consecutive rotates. That's not happening again on some this week. I'll spoil that one for free. Okay. In 5th place, we do in fact take a 9-point drop down to Team Still Not a Jasper.
Kazian's been sitting pretty... Kazian's messaging in the Discord has been mixed on, like, tone. Like, oh, but this looks so good. I love that last swing from Arm 4.
Okay, so... I haven't talked about him yet, but... Wheel arms. Overrated or overpowered? This solve argues overpowered, obviously, because it uses one. This is our first hex arm of the day, though. First multi-arm at all.
Not counting height, where we had a couple.
Well, yeah, Kazian had a hex arm as well in height.
Yeah, and then the two Bambis and mine
Oh,
both had
yeah,
a
you had the double arms. That was... Yeah, okay, fair point. So this one's 6p and it crashes immediately after, so I'm going to slow it down just a bit. Just to give you a sense of how cool the movement is here. I think some solves like this are worth slowing down, so... Kind of gives you a bit more of a vivid picture of just how tight the geometry is for these top sum solves. Let me read the notes. Those of us seeking to make highly maintainable machines usually form ideas by staring, watching our machines work for minutes on end. Seldom even blinking. The machines create some excess product during this time. So I hope you understand that asking us to create an eye irritant machine is a special malice. For those of you for which that joke didn't click, some mains tend to stare at our GIFs a lot. that's just, it ends up being one of the best ways to give yourself like inspiration or optimization ideas. So the fact that you're staring at a GIF of an eye irritant machine for like 15 minutes on end, lore-wise, that's a really shitty thing for me to do. I hate to ruin the magic on the joke, but I did quite like that joke.
I liked it a lot. I'm figuring out why it's 6p is because Arm 2 has to do a pivot save to prevent Arm 1 grabbing when it shouldn't.
I didn't use a hex arm in the last sum puzzle, so I had a bunch extra in the drawer to get rid of Angry Face. I liked the use of the hex arm in this puzzle. I don't mind hex arms for this puzzle. I did, yeah. I was playing around with ideas that involved hex arms. That's for sure. Also worth mentioning. So we have a new method here. I don't really know what name to call it. It's kind of like one shape is the health product shape, and the other is, sorry, hair product shape, and the other is the health tonic shape. Wow, I mixed those up. So I guess we can just use that and call this the health product method, or the hair tonic method. I don't know, whichever one you fancy.
I was gonna say, like, the cyan, except for the Y, has a little bit of extra fire, so it's like the cyan, but that doesn't actually work.
Yeah, it's pretty much what it is.
The horsey turns into a fish.
Horsey! The horsey method. There we go. Gotta give it a snappy name. So yeah, we'll call this the horsey method. Haven't seen it before to this point. I don't think this is the last time we'll see it though. So what it means is that last bond is less painful. You do often still have to buy it with an extra bonder, but you might not necessarily have to. Maybe you have the geometry or the space to just rotate. And here it definitely means you can get both bonds on at the same cycle and just output.
It's a little bit area heavy.
It is area heavy, yes.
Also a total nit, but if it's an instruction secondary and I see there's a grab, pivot, grab on Arm 2 right in the middle of the screen, that second grab is it's a shame. But it feels like it's a really good assembly process.
Yeah, I guess that's if Kazian loses by a single instruction, he's gonna that'll be a learning lesson. That'll be a learning moment. Yeah, it is heavy. It is a little heavy. I think the heaviness on the area count comes from the fact that yeah, I know the solve in general is pretty spread out. Arm 4, specifically the rotate, it does as a length 3 arm with the final product. It's very area intense swing. But it kind of ends up being very cheap for its cost. 140 was about average. And 92 cycles was well below average. So I think that's what it's kind of buying for its extra area. It ends up using that area to make itself very fast.
I mean, I'm more expensive, faster, and smaller.
You are. So, you're on a more extreme end of the Pareto frontier, though.
Yeah, but I'm maybe next, maybe top 3. It's one of the two.
Okay, next up, we move down a single point to 288.
Someone got the gap.
This one submitted by Witch Push. So, rather cheap at 120.
Oh, it's using 50 area. I was wondering at the beginning, like, how much area is going to come up, but then it did use a lot under the machine.
Yeah, it's kind of
whose only job is to pivot.
It starts out really small, but yeah, I think it's at this point that the area kind of catches up with it. Also, the final swing. So yeah, 4 arms, but 0 like track or hex arms or anything. So that's not too bad on the arm count, and only 3 bonders and a debonder. So just very cheap in general.
It still manages to be faster than its cost as a number, but only barely. This is a very semi-solved. I look at those numbers and I think, oh, this is going to feel good.
I really like the way Arm 3 gets that C bonded. It just kind of doesn't need to be having its attention focused on the bonder at this point because it's already in place. And Arm 1 can just kind of come around while Arm 3 kind of waits. So I do like how the arms kind of work together to get the C in order. And also the fact that Arm 1 makes the final bond means that Arm 1 can just kind of slip the C out of it, Arm 3 being in the middle of it. So that doesn't end up being much of a problem. And Arm 2 and 4 are the arms that kind of work together to get the Y sorted. Arm 2 will do all the bonding. And Arm 4, which kind of pivots debonding, also manages to come in with the clutch pivot here at the end here, which hands off.
Arm 4 is the pivot arm of the week.
Yeah, Arm 4 is pivot arm. It's not a single outstanding pivot, but it's just like good pivot utility.
Oh, username Void spotted a -1.
As a -1, Arm 1 can reset properly.
Arm 1 doesn't have the cycles to do that. It's already the slowest arm.
No, Arm 1 can't reset properly. It yeah, that's 4 cycles. It's the limiting arm.
If you rotate it the other direction and Arm 4 takes care of the subsequent pivots on that fire, then Arm 1 can grab again afterwards. I think you might be able to use Arm 4 to save Arm 1 cycle so that it can rotate the other way. But it needs 2 cycles, so no, it'll still be slower. Never mind.
I think it would still be slower, yeah, because of the regrab, I think. Forgot about second. Yeah, no, I don't think you can do that with Arm 1. It's a bit of an idea, but yeah. Funny you mentioned that 1 point, though. That did end up mattering.
I'm not even next. Wow.
Nope, you're not next. Just before we go here, I do think this is a nice classical use of finding kind of utility. Both arms that take care of debonding are also helping out with the construction, and you don't even need any track to accomplish that, which is why I like this solve so much. Because, yeah, the only single job arm is Arm 2, and Arm 2's got the most annoying job anyway, so I really like this clear division of labor here. And just like, it's good use of like minimizing dead instructions in your instruction tray. And stuff like this these are not easy to come by. So finding this is a real accomplishment. Anyway. Point, if it was there, it wasn't there, but I don't think it was there. But if it was there, it would have mattered. Because next up, in 3rd place, is Goodbye Galaxy at 287. So, having a look at the scores, it was like 135, 101, 51, I think. Yeah, that's a pretty normal point. That's a pretty sensible place on the Pareto frontier.
Why you bring that up?
No. Well, just because there's been a lot of variety. It hasn't settled yet. Like, yeah, Team Caliuresis was a bit on the fast end, which pushes on the slow end. This is between the two. I know yours is going to be on the fast end.
That's me.
So, like, it's bouncing all over the place. This doesn't show any signs of settling, which I found fascinating. So, this uses...
It makes me wonder where that perfect spot is, and whether you, Zorflax, have it.
So, this uses the horsey method, which makes a return here. I like the way this debonds in particular. So it kind of has a couple pivots at the start. Those are the annoying pivots because that's the fire that's debonded. That only needs to happen once. And the horsey method allows Goodbye Galaxy to go, no, I'm just going to keep the fire on this end. And then Arm 2 will use its place on the track to kind of position itself so that Arm 3 can get those other two waters bonded in the rest of the horsey shape. And Arm 4 will just kind of carry the one of the leftovers with Arm 1 helping with the other C shape. It kind of bonds pretty conveniently in the end here. And then it just kind of needs to wait for Arm 2 and 3 to finish up. Arm 2 slides it across. The most unfortunate part is the output. It's really because Arm 4 has to be the one outputting because Arm 2's out of time. You can have a look at the instructions tree here. Arm 2, that's where it debonds it. It only has one cycle to reset before time's up. And it is just unfortunate that Arm 4 needs to do a rotate and a pivot. Which takes the area count up from, holy shit, that's surprisingly compact, to average. But it does still have an above average cycle count and cost count, so nevertheless, a strong showing.
The horsey method does seem really convenient because you're just handling, instead of 5 and 4 things, it's like the easier 5. Like the horsey is a convenient 5 compared to the C, which is an inconvenient 5.
Yeah. I think, yeah, and I think the way the horsey, it's very, because your intuition says the cyan method, because it's, and I'm not dissing the cyan method, just to be clear, because the cyan method is a good method, because it's very, fire goes here, water goes here, but the benefit of the horsey method is that all the debonded atoms go in the same spot. So here, Arm 2 just handles that 2-atom shape, and that will become the core of the horsey. And Arm 3 just handles all 3 debonded atoms the exact same way. The only difference is how Arm 2 positions them on its molecule relatively. And then Arm 1 and 4 kind of take turns handling the scraps in what is some pretty nice geometry here. Having 2 arms take care of this bonding job makes the job so much less of a pain in the ass.
I like that 3 of the 4 arms are all out of time exactly right in the moment, so that they don't have a gap after their instructions. But there is some decent gaps in the middle on arms 2 and 3.
Yeah, Goodbye Galaxy. I could hear myself. Goodbye Galaxy. He wasn't confident in his solve. I do remember that. He did manage to come up with something really good though. I know he liked the puzzle a lot. But yeah, he settled on 287 like day 1 or 2 or something and just couldn't find anything that beat this.
What day did I ship you my solve?
Pretty early as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was last Sunday. I just sat down. I was like, today's the day I'm going to work on some. And I did one session. Did not try other options. So it's really interesting to me that did well.
So, Goodbye Galaxy in my DM sent me, instead of notes, which I don't think there are any, I'll read some of the DMs he sent me as rubber ducking, because he had some pretty interesting, like, stake-in-the-ground opinions on this puzzle, in terms of how to sum optimize it. For example, Goodbye Galaxy thinks hex arms are overrated. He thinks duplication is a trap. I agree with him, duplication's a trap. He really wishes fire and air was swapped. In brackets, he put not really, but the idea is it would be a much more convenient puzzle if fire and air were swapped. Outputting is a huge pain in the ass. He thinks it's going to be a game of how efficiently can you use your bonders. Area matters. And if anyone can make a half-balo catalyst work, then they deserve to win. Also, track is a sign of weakness.
I like that.
Okay.
I got more track and more bonders than this solve. I'm assuming I'm next.
Okay, yes, you are next. Coming in at 286. We have Team 42. And you can see this one is at an extreme end on the cost cycles. It is above average cost still, but that cycle count being south of 90 is a huge benefit.
And the area is only 44. The area is good with this layout.
And you were able to maintain the low area.
I'm sad about how much it takes to actually finish off the C shape. Like, there's 2 cycles where only things that are happening are pivots because things are just ordered wrong, but it's otherwise really convenient. That wand to get the Y built and the other piece debonded in the right place is good.
Oh yeah, it's a sick one. So, really clever, almost reminiscent of what Calyresis did, where bonds are made before debonds here. So Arm 1 essentially serves as a wand where it gets to keep the water atom while giving off the fire air to the Arm 3, Arm 4 duo, which will sort out the C shape. Again here, and the Y shape is just naturally made already before it's even finished debonding. And as Biggie mentioned, the only thing that annoyed her was that the pivots here kind of take a couple of cycles where it's not doing anything else. But everything else is just super quick, super neat, well ordered. I really like this wanding trick. Very clever idea. I would never have come up with it.
I was just fiddling in the one session I gave some. I was like, okay, this debonder is doing all the things I needed to do with very little arm work. Can I make this into a good solve? And this is a good solve.
Pivot of the week? Unless we see a better pivot, we'll give this, unless we see a better pivot, this is so far my pivot of the week. Just...
Thank you.
Congratulations. Consolidation prize for second place. Okay. It's time though. It is between me and Ebenov. And we will take one more drop. Yeah, for once, Biggie, this time you were on the good end of the log jam.
It's rare for me, but I'll take it.
You're usually on the bad end, just like you were in height. But no, this time you're on the good end. So, was it Ebenov? I do remember, like, on the hot pepper emoji, and that was about the same time they submitted because they were confident. So, coming in at 278 points, we have Ebenov, the winning solve. Congratulations.
Nicely done. The fact that you said Ebenov, though, means that yours is faster, yours is somer than this?
Yes, that does mean I was not beaten.
All right. That's exciting. We're going to have a Zorflax versus the Warudo.
Yes, and that does mean I will not be revealing myself on stream, and I will not be eating hot sauce today. I did get zeroth place after
Mind
all.
sharing it with me? I guess it's far, but like I've
Sorry?
some of that. Some of the hot sauce.
So what I'll do is, if the community can beat my solve, I'll reveal my solve no matter what next week. If the community can come together to beat my solve, I'll eat the hot sauce next week. And knowing my own score, I think that's going to be a fair reward for beating my solve. So, let's go. This solve is really cool though. So yeah, you do get a bit of bonus.
So small. The area is amazing.
Yeah, check out that area count. 41. That is the lowest area we've seen today. So, compared to Biggie's, it's 15G cheaper, only 10 cycles slower, and manages to be even smaller than Biggie's. So how does it accomplish this? So it is a surprisingly traditional cyan method. What's really cool, I really like exactly how Arm 2 goes about the debonding here. It'll translate this first one, rotate the second one, and will help out just in the meantime while it's dealing, while Arm 1 is dealing with the kind of remnants, and Arm 4 is kind of helping out. and arm 4 will translate the final one, put it in place, and it just snaps together perfectly, and also outputs, and also it reuses the bonder that it was using to create the Y shape, and then just can pivot in place to output.
This is so slick. It's like, congrats to Ebenov. This wins in my book. I know that you are holding on to better, and I'm at a loss.
I'm just amazed at how this snaps into place, though.
Can you use 2? It looks like the amount of area to the right of the solve is like some, but not that much.
Yeah, it's just that. That's it.
This is good. This is very good. I can't. Yeah, this is a good local optimum. I can't see anything here that makes me think, oh, this needs to be more blank. This is good. I'll take part in the versus the world here.
Just a little quick Zorflax versus the world, just as an aside. But I do enjoy the look. I did just kind of stare at this one for a while when it was first submitted. It is a really good solve. It just, the way everything just kind of snaps together, because we've been talking all stream about how the geometry has been stubbornly awkward all week, and this makes it look not awkward. We finally got there.
I'm trying to understand arms 1 and 3's communication, and it's 2 atoms, 1 atom, 2 atoms, but it doesn't get inconvenient like mine, where I had to do so many pivots to get things out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can speak about my design process. I couldn't get anything like this 2 atom, 1 atom, 2 atom thing to work. Especially not how Ebenov here makes it look like it's a convenient thing that he wants. I think it's a really clever ordering of operations, the way arms 1 and 3 can work in tandem to have that fire air just come in so kind of naturally, because none of the bottom arms need track. It's just they're working together with a single bonder. Because, yeah, this solve does only spend 40G on glyphs. It takes care to... It adds that extra 4th arm and a bit of track to go with it. So, the cost ends up being about average. But the cycle count is way below average. And the area count is way below average. It's just so neat. Username Void asks, I'm curious, was the input picked after exploring a handful of inputs and thinking this was the one you had the best sum solve for? Or was the solve made after the puzzle was decided? The solve was made after the puzzle was decided. No, it was a design goal for me to have the most pain in the ass input. And yeah, I did work around it like everyone else. So I did get more time than everyone else. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't a fair contest, but no, it wasn't like that. I do feel a little bad for leaving you people hanging, but I will hold on to my solve. I will definitely show you next week.
It's kind of wild that Genius 42 was looking at my solve and me calling it kind of a first effort, and he was thinking, you know, it seems like 250 might even be within reach for this puzzle, and I have no idea now whether that's... knowing that what I made was actually towards the top, but then knowing that you have a hidden ace up your sleeve. That number could be relevant or not.
I'm curious. Oh, I'm curious. When RPO threw the idea out last night, I'm like, wait, that's an awesome idea. Why the hell didn't I have that idea? Okay. This will take me a minute, but it is time to reveal next week's puzzle. Speed solvers at the ready, I presume?
Oh yeah, I opened Opus Magnum. I'm ready.
Very nice.
You will not get much commentary from me for the next maybe 3 minutes.
That's okay. I'll just go over the speed solves in that time. All right. So I'm just going to mention this before I actually show the puzzle. There is Moors in the region, and you are not allowed to grab it. Here is the puzzle.
Oh, it's one of the gecko type puzzles. Nice.
It is Gecko's puzzle. Let me just actually activate it. Alright, it is now active. So go. So the puzzle is Hex Stabilized Tuling's Moors. This is a puzzle brought to us by Gecko. As mentioned, you are not allowed to grab Moors at any time. If an arm grabs Moors, I'm pretty sure the website will just straight up not let you submit it. I think that's how it's done. In the kind of website parser. So your metrics. Your metrics are cost, secondaries being cycles and instructions. The other metric is instructions minus grab, drop, and pivot. So
oh, that's fun.
The secondary is cycles. It is essentially pivot cycles. So technically the primary is any... whoops. So the primary is any instruction that's not one of these four will count to the primary. So if you just use a solve using only those instructions, you will have a primary of 0. It'll be the perfect primary of 0. Perfect. And from there, the secondary will be cycles. Yeah, a Zeri poor. Yeah, I think Haxton confirming the website will straight up not allow you to submit a solve that grabs Moors. I did, was pointed out a week or, I think a week ago, that we've been doing a lot of our own puzzles over the last month. We're finally moving on to, our future will involve a lot more user-submitted puzzles, and I'm excited to show you what we've had submitted. This is definitely a really cool one. I've always been, can showcase solves grab Moors? You know, I don't actually think so. Oh, yes, they can. Okay, they can.
Oh, that changes speed solving. I'm doing it the right way.
Oh. Alright, well... Oh, gee, I don't know what the ruling is on speed solving then. Are you not grabbing Moors?
Correct. And it's
yeah, I'm just going to say don't grab Moors for speed solving. Let's just get that one out of the way. But yeah, no, I always like Gecko's puzzles. They're always just kind of like these really cool, like, novel ideas. And they're always very well contained. He's a lot better at... He's got an knack for designing naturally well contained puzzles. You don't even need to solve for showcases. Well, I mean, that kind of trivializes speed solving, but...
Yeah, I sent it. It's a valid solution. It's also sent as a showcase. But...
That's okay. Be not too crazy with the glyphs. Just Bonda di Mondo. Calcifier. For what that's worth. No animismus, because then the whole pivot metric wouldn't make sense. Or maybe it would if we just calculated it really carefully, but we didn't do that. So yeah, that is Hex Stabilized Chilling's Moors, everyone. I really hope you enjoy the neat. I'm curious to see what people come up with. The metrics kind of work well in tandem with the restriction of not grabbing Moors, I think. So keen to see how that pans out. In the meantime, we have a few showcase solves to go through. And I will get those sorted out. Could take me a couple of seconds real quick.
Apparently, Kali Arisis beat me on the speed solve, which I was trying, so Kali's fast.
I did not know Kali Arisis knew how to speed solve that well.
Do you think he knows how to speed solve? It's just kind of the vibe you gave me there.
Oh, yeah. No, that was the vibe I gave. I didn't know. Some people are just naturally good at it. Some people aren't. Kali Arisis must just be damn good at it.
I've had a hard time finding Opus Magnum things Kali Arisis isn't damn good at, to be fair.
That's a very good point. Yeah, but like, I guess because because Penapig, he's like reigning champion. He's got a good case for best player at Opus Magnum at the moment, and he's not that good at speed solving. I'm not that good at speed solving, but yeah.
The tryhards are me and username Void typically, I'd say.
Whenever Rebix shows up, Rebix is also pretty quick.
That's true.
Rebix has just kind of got that speed solver vibe about them because I don't know. I think they
when they were doing the speed runs, also they had the computer for it. They had a somehow faster execution engine.
Yeah, I couldn't keep up with Rebix when I was speed running this puzzle. It was demoralizing how much faster Rebix was than me. Actually, let's see who submitted first. Kali Arisis, yeah, Kali Arisis came in 1 minute quicker. Username Void came in 2 minutes after you did, Biggie. There you go.
Got it. Yeah, in the Discord also, username Void mentioning they built the wrong output twice, and I also had to manually mirror my solution because I had built it mirrored.
Okay, where am I? Speed solves. Okay, so the first... one of the speed solves was not submitted as showcase, so let me bring the Sun Passer back up. Right, that's what I was confusing myself with doing. Sorry, I've had a bit of a brain fart. I've been streaming for 2.5 hours. Okay, so in terms of speed solving, our fourth place solve was Rubik's. I wasn't entirely sure on the times, but I do remember the order, so I'll show them in the order the reverse order they were submitted. This was the last one to be submitted.
There's a lot of complexity here.
It's kind of... I heard speed solving this puzzle in particular was a annoying experience.
It's a valid approach, and I like the visual organization of it, where there's only arms on every third row. Every fourth, I guess, gaps of 3.
Right, so you have a specific bottom third handles that, top third handles that. The top third is handled first. You can see it's kind of rearranged to make the tail part, and then the rest will make most of the ring, but there's an atom at the bottom. Has to wait. I have to duplicate that. Let's just throw it there. Throw it on a multi-bonder and bond it. So yeah, there was a lot of wait. I have to reorganize this. Oh god, because that's not
Yeah,
a
that's
thought.
a feeling.
Oh, that's not a thought you want to have when you're speed solving. Actually, I reckon the next solve is even funnier. If I go back to, I'm gonna have to switch between passes here.
Are you showing them in submission order? So where I would have been?
Yeah. So
I was not submitting fast. I just didn't start until later.
Oh, I did it in like, so I know you won, quote unquote. So I'm just gonna show you guys.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
So I find this one especially funny because you can see Username Void has bonded them together and has convinced himself he can just do like a duplication like C, and then at about this point he realizes, ah shit, I actually need to debond.
Oh, that's funny.
And
this is a forward first.
And he has to debond it again. Wait, shit, I need that one to be water. And then he debond.
Thought processes you can watch. Honestly, this is still a quick. Like, this matches the sort of thought process as it translates to the page. That's cool.
So I think I had, if I remember correctly, I had Username Void clocked at about 9.5 minutes. Which brings us to our next solve. This one is also not showcased, so back to the parser I go. You're in an annoying order. Oh, I clicked the wrong button. Okay, well, it's the one called New Solution 1. The optimal speed solving name. So this is submitted by Fendir, which parser registers as the weekly game. Fendir's is pretty well ordered. He kind of realized from the outset, wait, yeah, stuff needs to be debonded and reordered here.
Yeah, if you throw enough arms at it, that works.
Yeah, I imagine it was get it onto debonders. I'm just gonna program a bunch of arms on a bunch of track because that's just easy. It's easier to think about translational movements than it is rotation pivoting. You see, like, that's a thing that a lot of like people who are like playing the campaign for the first time, and this is me, I did this. You kind of put stuff on tracks and use pistons a lot, and you translate a lot because it's easy to just think about like a molecule moving in a straight line than it is swinging around the place, which is part of what gives this game its charm when you're looking at like a really good cycle solve and everything swings about frantically.
I guess in my mind, swinging is pretty natural. Maybe it's the triangle trick, but I've seen the swings enough that I know where they'll go. I don't have to. I view the pistons and the tracks as a kind of naive approach.
No, I think it's a fair cop. Like rotations definitely is something that have come way more naturally to me over the years as doing a lot of SUM and TI puzzles, but. Yeah, initially when I remember the very, very first days when I was playing the campaign, it was just like piston on track, and God, how do I move this thing here? The track is in the way, but no, you slowly learn to get better at rotations, I think, as you get better at this game, and pivots. So
I'm just trying to contrast the different approaches. Rubik's did a good hybrid of debonding and duplication. Username Void did a kind of janky hybrid, where it was supposed to be all duplication, but then it didn't work, so added debonding. Fendir committed to debonding from the beginning. I did pure duplication. There's not a debonder in my solve.
Oh, you did pure duplication. Okay. Have I seen yourself? No, I don't think I have. So yeah, so this one was clocked in at about 7.5 minutes. I should have spent all that time I was talking, opening up the other parser. So yours was submitted as a showcase. It is also the optimal speed solving name of New Solution 1. Ah, you use a catalyst.
It's terrible because of how much space it has to spin up, but it does.
299. So yeah, and you just committed to duplication, knowing that, like, yeah, just have a catalyst in the middle. And you actually went to the trouble of initializing that piston, which I'm amazed you're able to do that quickly. Your time was 6.5 minutes for the whole thing, so... Like, shit, yeah, that's the kind of thing I can't afford to do when I'm speed solving. Yeah. That's not a trick I have when I speed solve.
I do not view that as that difficult. So I guess different strokes, because this is something that is like TI also. If you need it to happen once, you just retract the piston at the end, and then you're good. But yeah, I definitely built the thing similar to username void. I thought maybe I can just internally duplicate it, and then thought no. And then I added the catalyst logic, and I moved it a really far space to there because trying to route it more efficiently is slow.
Mm.
And it worked.
You did get the best time. 6.5 minutes. Username void reckons it can go under 6 if, like, someone took a really good approach from the outset. Oh yes, Gecko, let me send you the admin page for this week's puzzle. Because you are a host this week. So I'll do it later when I can actually find your name. I don't want to slow the stream down too much.
I love how there's a clock instruction on ARM 4 that is not relevant at all. It's all because the piston that outputs ended up being longer, period. That's a speed solve relic.
Okay, so so in terms of actual showcases that were designed as showcases, we have a few. First one is Bambi, called Swanky OR. It's an overlap rate solve, so this will be fun. Overlap rate is fucking wild.
Is it possible to get a better rate than 3R with overlap? Oh, this is nightmarish. Well done.
Jesus, look at that. Look at this curvature. It's a couple arms, one doing using rotates. Arm 3 will do it with just a pivot, if you don't mind. Let's do the initialization. Oh, I see. R1.
I think if you give us triplex bonder, this has a 2 OR. But without triplex bonder, it's 3 OR.
Really? What does the triplex bonder matter?
It allows you to do input, embedded, and output, and only get a bond on that input after the output has been made because of duplication priority.
Ew.
It's so bad, but I'm pretty sure adding triplex bonder increases the overlap rate by 50%.
Okay, that would be properly disgusting. What the everlasting fuck. This is an amazing solve.
I also like how it's a tri-arm doing the resets on the geometric thing, because it doesn't matter which side it grabs, it's still the same center of rotation.
This is why that other week had a pivotless metric. You were saving the pivots for week 6. Exactly! We get to pivot to our heart's content. We'll definitely have a pivot of the week next week. That much I can guarantee you. I will be searching carefully for pivot of the week. I just love how janky this movement is. It's got like a shoe. It's like. Oops. It's got the natural shape of like a shoe.
There was an old fish who lived in a boot.
Alright. Let's say, I hope I'm booting up the right one here, but this one was submitted by Random Guest. I know Random Guest spent all week on this at the expense of the metrics, and it is a cool ass solve. It is min height. As a tribute to our last year's height solve, I hope. Tell me if I've booted the wrong one up, Random Guest, but I think this is the right one. This is min height, suspiciously stable substance into hot pepper.
Oh, I like that. I was thinking it was like based on the Stevens solve that was at height 3 until the very last cycle, and then it did a huge waste.
I remember that. That was like panacea to poison, wasn't it?
I think it was.
But, you know, as a tribute to last year's height puzzle, this turns the input into suspiciously stable substance, and then with, you can see that straggler water air atom, I think that'll just be the catalyst for the foreseeable future. And from here it will change the suspiciously stable substance into hot pepper. I can't remember the name of my own puzzle. Eyedrops of Irritation.
Okay, it does take 9 atoms to make each of them, so it's not a terrible ratio. I was worried that it would also be a terrible ratio.
Let me read the notes, because it's a pretty bad ratio. The solve was made with one goal in mind: go from very hot water to suspiciously stable substance to pepper spray, all in 3 height. Because 11, that's the amount of atoms in sus substance.
You're right. I miscounted. It is 11 to 9.
Yeah, it's 11 to 9. Because 11 and 9 are relatively prime, the solve is coded out to 11 products, each one produced differently, the last of which is dropped on cycle 1329. We haven't actually looped yet, in case anyone was wondering. Arm 1 isn't way off to the left, isn't it? Well, I'm gonna try and speed it up. There we go. Arm 1 is an initial, way off to the left, is an initialization arm, preserving the air and water from the first input so that the 2 elements can make it to the right half of the solve and serve as catalysts. These catalysts are then used as part of the 11th product and replaced at the beginning of the next loop. Since the next set of catalysts are duped off of the previous ones, only the first sus substance is incomplete, minus the triplex bonds, of course. Shoutouts to OM Clone, for without it, I would not have been able to make this solve. 3,500 odd instructions across 6 arms is not easy to program. Valid. I programmed the left half first, turning the right half into an interesting height cycles challenge that took me all week to conquer. Technically, a true height cycle solve would have the 2 halves closer together, but I stuck with this layout for the aesthetic of the line of sus substance making their way across the field. This reminds me of that one Icelandic lava salt puzzle that I think Spiritual Shampoo made that turned it into most of that year's Weeklies puzzles and then back into Icelandic lava salt.
The huge triangle?
Yeah, that fat triangle. This just, it's that, but with sus substance and at min height and at an annoying ratio, which is done pretty fast. Imagine if Pivot of the Week isn't cost. That would be a swerve. Is it possible to have a Pivot of the Year? Because I feel like last year's Pivot of the Year definitely goes to the Lustrous Syrup Pivot. That one pivot gave cost new tech.
Is it not even a pivot though, right? I guess it is a pivot. It's just the concept of you have access to the other side of the bonder as long as you can reach an atom. That's the lustrous syrup tech.
Yeah, it's like a pivot and then a rotate, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about right.
So I guess we can call, yeah. Definitely movement tech of the year. I remember suspiciously stable substance. Yeah, because that was Haxton's puzzle originally. Bist tweaked it. I was honestly pleasantly surprised with how that puzzle turned out and how good it was and how much fun people had, especially Height. Height was very interesting for sus substance.
I remember Height feeling awful for the first half of the week and then feeling like I was getting the hang of it, and that's kind of a good thing, but it doesn't feel good at the beginning.
Nah. You know, I really feel like, I don't know, I feel like Eyedrops of Irritation was kind of the spiritual successor. At least in terms of the fact that we also did Height, and it was also a long-ass output at 3 Height, and was just kind of, I don't know, painful, had its own variety of tech, and people were gradually warming up to it across the week. Sus Substance, we did Area as the other metric, and Area was just really hard. I think Shadow Cluster won on Primary, which is a good indicator that it was a hard area puzzle.
Right, that was the only 25 in a sea of 26.
Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of excellent, because this was, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, this was at first designed as a Sun puzzle. And that whole spiritual success and a Sus Substance thing almost happened by accident. I think it wasn't by accident. I did think about it and thought, oh wait, yeah, Height. That would actually be really cool. Kind of feeds into the spiciness of the puzzle nicely. I'm just staring at a min height sus substance solve and kind of reminiscing about how low the rate was on those puzzles. This is a really well done solution. Thank you for submitting it, Random Guess. I think it was well worth it. Alright, one more solve. It is submitted to us by Yosh. And it is a vintage fish. It is vintage instructions only. And I've already got the right size, because, whoa, let me slow it down. Huh.
Says he's already got the right size and then needs to resize it to use the tool.
God fucking damn it.
Yeah, the process of reorienting all of the kind of janky pieces that this puzzle provides is hard with vintage instructions. It makes sense that there's so many arms.
Alright, so I'll read the notes. The notes read, I saw people on the Discord saying... Well, let me just let the solve keep playing. I saw people on the Discord saying the Regent was made as annoying as possible to assemble the final product, so out of the blue I decided to make a vintage solve of the puzzle. I also decided to not use the glyph of calcification or the glyph of duplication, because any alchemist worth their salt ought to be able to construct this product without using such newfangled glyphs. I don't really care enough to improve it beyond this. This was just a fun exercise. Feel free to discuss the location of the Crytelli. I think it's valid. People will disagree.
That's where mine was in the sum solve, right in the middle of the circle.
Unless there's like, oh, there was a better spot for it. There was a better spot for it, though. Check out that spot.
Oh, you're right. Oh, I see it. I don't know if that's better, though. It's not actually surrounded on all sides by machinery.
It's unused. It's completely surrounded by used hexes. You can't deny that. Come on, that's a better spot.
It's a good spot. You're right.
Alright, I'll take that. Always divisive, the Crytelli discussions. But beyond that spot, I do think that's a perfectly sensible spot for it. I haven't been paying too much attention to Crytelli. There's two of those hexes. I missed the other hex. Where is the other one? Oh, yeah, that one there. That one actually might be a little better because it's more central, but also this one feels a little more enclosed. So I know I probably still gravitate towards this one, but nevertheless.
They both have 2 atoms or 2 hexes of unused space around them.
Yeah, see, Arm9's grabber lives on one of the free hexes on one of them for a while, which kind of is the reason I picked that spot over the other one. Gives me better vibes. Cratelli is just it's a vibes thing. Just wherever it vibes the most. I think it vibes perfectly well in completely enclosed inside the pepper spray. I know, I'm kind of amused by Yosh's kind of niche in this community. If there's like a really, really hard to solve, no one dare optimize it puzzle, Yosh is like, Yosh is the person to go to solve it. All this optimization stuff is just pudding, you know?
I don't remember, like, how has Brother Mojo's production series
Oh,
reached
except for those. That's like the exception, I think. Apparently, I'm told to slow it down because Arm 2 is tragic. I'm trying to track down Arm 2.
Slow it down was back when you hadn't yet turned on the or you hadn't turned off the speed up from the height solve before this.
Oh, okay. Kind of missed that boat. Sorry.
Arm 2 is holding onto a fire atom by itself for quite a while.
Yeah, it holds. Yeah, at the very beginning, it just holds that fire atom for the longest time before, and it finally gets that air atom bonded onto it. At which point, it can hand it off to Arm 21, and then it just kind of needs to do some surgery to fix the wrong bond and outputs. Not a single pivot to be found. Or track.
Gonna have to change your perspective quite a bit for this week's puzzle.
Oh yeah, no, you'll have to make the opposite of this. You're still not done Brother Mojo's production puzzles? I'd recommend them. They're really good. If you really want a hard as shit to solve puzzle, Brother Mojo's production puzzles are like some of the best. Yeah, I do think like you would never give them to like someone who doesn't really know what they're doing with the game. I think. I had thousands of hours in this game before I even looked at one, and they still kicked my ass. And I generally consider myself pretty good at production at that, but you really have to really think carefully about movement. Alright, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Wait, let me just fix that so I don't have to do it later.
Mr. Puzzle says wait with an exclamation point. Providing you a mod. Is it a grab mores and you die mod?
That would be cool.
Does it put the you have been slain Dark Souls?
You died. Shit, if that's the mod, I'm hyped for that. Alright, we'll hold off. I'll keep the stream going for a bit. So, what are your thoughts on the puzzle generally, Biggie?
I've liked Gecko's puzzles in the past, and I think they've always been kind of on the simpler side because they're all about this gimmick. But the fact that they're simple means that the process of exploring them is very fun. So I've always enjoyed. I think these are the puzzles where I would find them on the workshop and be interested in getting cost cycles and area mins, where usually I do not go as far as trying area. So I'm excited to have this be in an official capacity. The workshop's one thing, but being like asked to solve it in hush hush and then reconvene after a week is really my favorite thing.
No, I'm a fan. I know I've always been a fan of Gecko's puzzles just for that reason. I just think like the fact like they're never annoying. Oh, okay, no grabbing moles.zip is the name of this mod.
I wouldn't have thought about a mod idea except for Mr. Puzzle saying, "Wait, I have a mod for you," and then I have that brainwave. What if it's exactly what he made?
Holy yeah.
Or what if it's a you grab more as the game crashes?
Let's see what happens. Oh god, I have to find I lost my spot. Steam apps, common, Opus Magnum, mods. I think I have to reboot my game.
I have the custom folder as one of the quick access links on. Like if I download a puzzle, I can drag it into custom without any extra work.
That's one of the ones I had open. The one I usually don't have open is the mods folder.
True, yeah, it's one level up and down again.
Forbid the ability to grab moles. Grabbing moles is now banned. Alright. What happens? Alright, let me just show it off. What happens if I try to grab moles? Aha! Just gives you an error screen. This gripper attempted to grab a moles.
That's cool. Alright. It's safer than you died or a crashing game.
Did you really just whip that out in like the half an hour odd? Yeah, you did.
Modeling.
Holy shit, you whipped that out like after I announced this puzzle. Jesus. Amazing. Alright, do link that mod to the weekly chat. I think that'll be the place to find that mod. In case you need help just making sure that you're not grabbing moles accidentally. I think that'll just be like, I don't know. It'll keep you honest, that's for certain. I see how some of you people program, you reset instruction users. Alright, and we have just come up on the 3-hour mark now. So I think it's a good time to end it. Do check out that mod though. And overall, oh, let me just put that back. And thank you for joining me. This has been a really fun stream. I look forward to seeing what you come up with for this puzzle. A speed mod. I really look forward to seeing what you come up with for both this puzzle and the real quick, hastily thrown together Zorflax versus the World challenge that is now a thing.
One good thing about this versus the world is we already have a pretty good wealth of ideas to sift through as a group.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, because one of the biggest roadblocks to the whole Biggie versus the World challenge was getting started.
Yeah, and Fiesta, like, mad power to Fiesta for just dropping good solves and saying, here, look at this, work with this.
Honestly, might have been the MVP, even though, like, I know Specs and Rolami and shit did a lot to help really drag that cycle count down. I think that was the most important part, because the community was just stuck for, like, 3 or 4 days. Just stuck fast, and then Fiesta came out and unstuck everyone. So, it's like that, except you people are not stuck. You will have a lot of solves, a lot of ideas. I feel like I might, if it's not already happening, I might start a thread in the Weeklies channel. Perfect. Just make me pay for my hubris. And yeah, that'll be the stream. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing what you all come up with next week.
See you next time. Always appreciate these.
Thank you for joining me in commentary. It would have been an otherwise lonely experience commentating.